Our next broadcast was a radio series of mystery and terror tales produced and directed by Jock McGregor for the Mutual Network between March 18th and September 9th of 1945. Each week after the sounding of the great gong, host Philip Clark observed that the mysteriously silent keeper of the book has opened the ponderous door to the secret vault wherein is kept the great sealed book in which is recorded all the secrets and mysteries of mankind throughout the ages. Here are tales of every kind, tales of murder, of madness, of dark deeds, strange and terrible beyond all belief. We present to you The Sealed Book on HOJO Radio.
The Sealed Book. Once again, the keeper of the book has opened the ponderous door to the secret vault, wherein is kept the great sealed book, which records all the secrets and mysteries of mankind through the ages. Here are tales of every kind, tales of murder, of madness, of dark deeds, strange and terrible beyond all belief. Keeper of the book, I would know what tale we tell this time. Open the great book and let us read. Slowly, the great book opens. One by one, the keeper of the book turns the pages and stops. Ah, the strange story of a woman who was born with the soul of a cat. A tale titled Queen of the Cats. Here is the tale, Queen of the Cats, as it is written in the pages of the sealed book. It is early evening, and in a large, old-fashioned living room filled with gloomy shadows, young Chris Arnold, his face haggard, sits glowering at his fiancée, Jane Elliott, and the serious-faced doctor, whom she has brought to see him. Chris's hand trembles as he tries to light a cigarette while he speaks.
I'm sorry Jane made you come all the way out here to see me, Dr. Smith. There's nothing wrong with me. Nothing, I tell you.
Oh, Chris, there is. I know it.
Yes, Chris, Jane's right. I've known you all my life, and I can see at a glance there's something wrong. Now, why not tell me and let me see whether I can help you or not?
All right. I'll tell you. I've got to tell someone. Jane knows part of the story already. She was in it. But I'll tell it to you from the very beginning, which was 2 years ago at a party to which Jane and I were invited.
Oh, Chris, isn't this a wonderful party?
The only thing wonderful about it is you.
Chris, don't. People are watching.
Oh, fine thing when a man can't kiss his best girl in public. What's this generation coming to?
At Miss Tyndall's school, we were taught a young lady never kisses a man in public.
Miss Tyndall is setting romance back 50 years. Who are you looking for, anyway?
Rana Farouk, my roommate at Miss Tyndall's.
Oh, she's the Egyptian girl you were telling me about.
Yes, I want you to meet her. Only you'd better not fall in love with her as every other man does.
Sounds as though she's a second Cleopatra.
Men don't seem to be able to resist her.
Really? Well, I'm curious to see this siren of the Nile.
There she is, Chris. Come on.
So that's Rana. No wonder men can't resist her.
Hello, Jane. I've missed you.
Rana, this is Chris Arnold. Chris, this is Rana Farouk.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, Rana.
Oh, look, there's Miss Tyndall waving to me. Excuse me, won't you?
Of course, Jane.
I'll be back in a minute.
You know, Chris, at Miss Tyndall's, the first thing I'd see in the morning when I got up and the last thing before I went to bed was your picture. And I always knew that someday we would meet. Now we have. Why are you staring at me like that? Aren't you going to say anything?
I prefer just to look. Even now, Doctor, 2 years after our first meeting, I find it difficult to describe how beautiful Rana was. I was her slave from the moment I saw her. A month after we'd met, we were married.
I see. Please go on, Chris.
After Rana and I were married, we took an apartment in town. In the months that followed, I began to see Rana not as the image I'd been infatuated with, but as she really was. Vain, selfish, and possessive. It was a possessiveness verging on madness. She couldn't bear to have me out of her sight. And when I was, upon my return, there'd be questions, countless questions. I began to dread seeing her. And then there were the cats.
The cats?
Yes. The apartment was always full of cats. She'd sit for hours stroking them, whispering to them, till I felt I'd go mad. And that was when I got the strange idea that Rana wasn't really human at all, but a great cat herself, wearing human form. She and the cat seemed to talk together as if they understood each other perfectly. Life became a nightmare for me. A nightmare full of cats and Rana asking questions, endless questions. One day I realized I couldn't go on living with her any longer, that our marriage had been a mistake. I decided to tell her about it that very evening without waiting any longer. May I come in, Rana?
Of course, dear.
Rana, there's something important I want to talk to you about.
Please, Chris, there's so little time just now. We can talk after the party.
But, Rana, this is important. I think that...
Darling, whatever you have to say can wait. Now, please hurry.
But,
Please.
Well, all right. We'll discuss what I have to say later.
Chris, when I called you at the office this afternoon, why didn't you tell me that you'd had lunch with Mary Walker?
How did you know I had lunch with her?
Oh, a friend told me.
A friend? Who was it?
What is it, my beauty? What are you trying to tell me?
Rana, put that cat down and answer me. Who was the friend that told you I had lunch with Mary Walker?
Someone you've never met, darling.
How is it you always know what I've been doing? Whom I've been seeing? It's as though you have people spying on me.
Chris, what a thing to say. Now, please hurry or we'll be late.
There's something strange about the way you always know what I've been doing. Sometimes I suspect you...
Chris, look out! You stepped on Sabina's tail.
Well, if there weren't so many cats underfoot, I wouldn't have stepped on it. Why must you keep 5 cats around?
Because I love cats. They're beautiful, sacred. Thousands of years ago, my ancestors worshipped cats. And the great cat goddess Sekhmet. On the River Nile, close by the ancient city of Hamadi, where I was born, are the graves of 100,000 sacred cats who have been mummified and buried with reverence.
Rana, I can't go on like this anymore.
Why, darling, what do you mean?
Our marriage was a mistake. I want a divorce.
Chris, you can't be serious.
But I am.
No, Chris. I love you and I won't give you up. You're mine, darling. You always will be. Nothing shall ever separate us.
Care for a cocktail, sir?
No, thank you.
Well, even if you won't have one, Mr. Arnold, I will.
Jane! Oh, Jane, it's good to see you again. Can't we go someplace and talk? What about the terrace?
All right, Chris.
Here, this door opens onto it. Oh, this is much better. been quite some time since we've seen each other, hasn't it?
Yes, the last time we saw each other was the night that...
The night that I met Rana.
Yes. How is Rana, Chris?
Oh, she's fine. Oh, Jane, I've made such a mess out of everything. I was a fool to have married her.
Please, Chris, you mustn't talk like that.
I was a fool, Jane, mistaking infatuation for love. Can you ever forgive me for the way I behaved towards you?
There's nothing to forgive, Chris.
Jane. This is a surprise.
Rana.
Hello, Rana.
Really, Jane, the way you've avoided calling on us, I half suspect you're still in love with Chris.
Rana, you have no right to talk to her like that.
Please, Chris, I'm afraid I'll have to be leaving. It's getting quite late. Good night.
Good night, Jane.
I hope I didn't interrupt anything by coming out here so unexpectedly, Chris.
Yes, Rana, you did. I was about to tell Jane that I love her and that I always will. Rana, you've got to give me a divorce.
I'll never give you a divorce. Never, do you hear? You're mine and you always will be. If I can't have you, no one else will.
And now my story continues, as it is written here in the pages of the sealed book. There is horror on Chris Arnold's features as he tells the doctor of his efforts to get his wife, Rana, to divorce him, and of her refusal to let him go.
I can still see her, Doctor. She stood there, glaring at me. She looked like a cat. A great angry cat. Her green eyes were cold and murderous. Her long nails dug into my arm. Her body was tense. For a moment, I thought she was going to scratch my eyes out. And she turned and stalked away.
What happened after that night, Chris?
I ceased speaking to Rana. We lived in the same apartment, but that was all. Rana waited for me to come around, with all the patience of a cat playing with a mouse. But when a month had passed and I still refused to talk to her, she made an attempt to win me back. It happened one night as we were driving to this house. Why are you slowing down, Rana?
I want to talk to you, Chris, and I can't talk to you while I'm driving.
There's no point in your stopping. We have nothing to say to each other.
But we do, darling. Chris, we could be so happy together if you wanted to. You know how much I love you. I'd do anything to make you happy, anything.
Anything? Then you can give me a divorce.
Chris, you haven't any right to treat me like this. I'm your wife.
Only in the eyes of the law, not in my eyes.
I hate you. I hate you!
Oh, you cat! You almost took my eyes out with those claws of yours.
I will scratch your eyes out before I let any other woman have you. You're mine and you always will be.
Perhaps this will bring you to your senses. Slide over. I'll drive.
Very well, Chris. You think you've beaten me, Chris. But you haven't. In the end, you'll come crawling to me. It may take a year, 2 years, 5 years. But I can wait.
You have everything planned perfectly, Rana, don't you? But I have one way of escape from you that you never thought of.
Really? And what way is that?
I can escape through death.
Death?
Yes, Rana. If I should fail to take the curve 100 yards ahead, we'd plunge off the side of this mountain.
Chris, you wouldn't.
Why not, Rana? You've showed me there's nothing to live for. This at least is a clean way out.
No, Chris! Chris, no! No! No!
When I drove the car over the side of the mountain, Doctor, I thought Rana and I were going to our deaths. But fate decreed otherwise. When I recovered consciousness 48 hours later in a hospital, I learned it was only Rana who had died. I only had a few bones broken and was out of the hospital in a month. It was just a week later that I ran into Jane. Oh, Jane!
Oh, Chris, it's you.
Janie, you always seem to pop up just when I need you most.
These past weeks must have been so difficult for you.
Oh, I don't want to look back at the past, Jane, but only to the future. The future I once hoped we'd share, and still do. Two months ago, Doctor, Jane and I became engaged. It was just about that time that I first began to notice that everywhere I went, there always seemed to be a cat following me.
Are you sure you weren't imagining it, Chris?
At first, I thought it was my imagination, but a week after Jane and I became engaged, I was certain I was being followed.
Well, tell me, Chris, was it always the same cat that followed you?
No. One day it'd be one cat, and another day a different one. Then one night, I saw her. It happened in this very room 6 weeks ago. I had great difficulty in falling asleep that night. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the faint crying of a cat. The crying grew louder, louder. I lay in the darkness listening, realizing that the cat crying was real, living, and in my room. I could feel my heart pounding as I sat up in bed and looked about my darkened room. And suddenly I saw her. Two burning green eyes in the darkness. There was no mistaking those eyes. They were Rana's. I stared into those eyes for what seemed like hours. Then, as though listening to a stranger's voice, I heard myself speak. Rana! It is you, Rana, isn't it? Yes, I'd recognize those green eyes anywhere. So you've come back, and in the form I've always thought of you as, a cat. I know why you've come back. It's because of Jane. You always said that if you couldn't have me, no one else would. That I was yours and always would be. Well, you're wrong, do you hear? Jane and I are going to be married. You came between us once, but you aren't going to this time. I will marry her, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Oh, you fiend! Try to scratch my eyes out, would you? Well, we'll see about that. That'll show you. Nothing you can do will stop me from marrying her. I know that the cats that were following me and spying on me were doing so under your orders. You're the queen of the cats. Yes, I should have known. No wonder you always knew where I'd been, who I'd seen. You had cats spying on me even then. Well, even if you are the queen of the cats, you can't stop me from marrying Jane. Perhaps a bullet between those green eyes of yours is what's needed.
And now to continue the story as it is written in the sealed book. His voice shaking, Chris Arnold is telling how he shot at the great black cat which came to him in the night and missed.
I emptied the gun at her, Doctor. At Rana in her true form of a great cat. And I turned on the light. There was no sign of her. She'd vanished. All that I found were 6 bullet holes in the wall opposite my bed.
Chris, isn't it possible that you only dreamed all that actually you fired the gun in your sleep and the shots themselves wakened you?
I tried to tell myself that. But during the nights that followed, I knew it hadn't been a dream. For night after night, the great black cat appeared in my house. I'd lie awake, waiting to hear her voice. And when she'd appear, I'd plead with her to leave me alone, but she'd only stare at me with those burning green eyes, waiting. I knew she'd never leave me alone as long as I intended to marry Jane. Finally, I went to see Jane.
Chris, this is a surprise. Come in, darling.
Thank you. Jane, there's something I want to ask you.
Yes, Chris, of course. What is it?
I know we set our wedding for next week, but couldn't we put it off for a while? Just a little while.
Oh, darling, what is it? There's something wrong. I know there is. Please tell me.
Wish I could, but I can't. Please, Jane, just have faith in me. You know I wouldn't postpone our marriage if I could possibly help it.
All right, Chris. I do have faith in you. We'll consider our marriage postponed for the time being.
The night I put off my marriage to Jane, Doctor, was the first night that Rana didn't appear. And the first night in a week that I was able to sleep.
You think, Chris, that she didn't appear again because you had postponed your marriage to Jane?
I know it. Weeks went by. Weeks in which I was able to sleep soundly without being awakened by her. I came to think that perhaps it had all been part of a horrible nightmare and that I was over it at last. A week ago, I asked Jane to set the date for our wedding. She did so, and that same day we took out a marriage license. But that night, Rana appeared again, her eyes shining in the dark, cold and murderous. And I've seen her every night since. I tell myself that I mustn't be afraid, but I keep hearing her voice over and over. If I can't have you, no one else will. You're mine, and you always will be.
Chris, darling, I wish I'd known all this before.
You feel, Chris, that somehow she'll prevent you from marrying Jane?
You know I sound mad, but I do. I have a feeling something horrible will happen if I attempt to marry her.
Do you still have the marriage license?
Yes. Why do you ask?
Chris, you've reached a crisis in your life. You're faced with fears that are threatening to overwhelm your sanity. Now, the best way for you to challenge your fears is to go through with your marriage to Jane now, tonight.
Tonight?
Yes. It's quite late, but I'm sure a friend of mine who's a judge will marry you.
All right, Doctor. Jane, will you marry me tonight?
Oh, yes, Chris. Yes.
Sorry to get you up in the middle of the night, Judge, but for reasons I can't explain, it's important that these two be married tonight.
That's quite all right, Doc. Always glad to oblige a friend. Have you got the license and ring, young man?
Yes, sir. Here's the license and here's the ring.
Good. Now, young man, if you'll take her right hand. That's it. Now, shall I give the long ceremony or the short one?
The short one, please.
Just as you say, young lady. This is the shortest one I've got. And do you, Jane Elliott, take this man to be your lawful wedded husband, to love, honor, and obey as long as you both shall live?
I do.
Do you, Christopher Arnold, take this woman to be your lawful wedded wife, to love, honor, and cherish as long as you both shall live?
It's she! It's Rana!
Oh, Chris, please. It's only a black cat. You mustn't pay any attention to it.
Of course not. Now
It's Rana, I tell you. Look at her eyes. I told you she'd try to prevent my marrying Jane. Well, I'll get rid of her for once and for all.
Chris, what are you doing with that gun? Put it down.
Oh, she got away. Well, wherever she's gone, I'll find her.
Chris, come back. Oh, me be.
Oh, Jane, he can't be far off. We'll find him. Listen.
Doctor, that must be Chris firing that gun.
Come on. Those shots came from close by.
Oh, hurry. Hurry.
You better take it easy now, Doc. It's pretty dark out here.
Wait a moment. I'll light my lighter.
Doc, look. A dead cat.
Yes. It was shot through the head.
Look, here's another one that's been shot to death.
Neither one of them is the black cat.
Say, Doc, isn't that a body over there?
Chris!
Hey, Jane, you stay with the judge while I look.
All right, Doctor.
There, mister. You mustn't cry.
But this would never have happened if I hadn't agreed to marry him. He was afraid, so afraid.
Doc, is it Arnold?
Yes, it is.
He's dead, isn't he? I can see it in your face.
Yes, Jane, he's dead.
But, Doc, how could such a thing have happened to him in such a short time?
He's been clawed to bits, as if by the claws of hundreds of cats.
Oh.
And most horrible of all, his eyes have been scratched out.
2 days later, at Chris Arnold's funeral, a great black cat appeared as if from nowhere, sitting close by the edge of the grave and licking its paws as it watched the coffin lowered into the earth. When they tried to catch it, it leaped away and seemed to vanish and was never seen again. Was it truly Rana, Chris's wife, reborn in the shape of the cat she had been at heart? The answer is not written here. The tale has been told just as it is recorded in the sealed book. And now, keeper of the book, before you close the great volume, show us the tale we tell next time. This one, yes, an amazing tale. It's the story of a brother and sister who found themselves left out of their aunt's will and who remedied that unfortunate situation by a clever scheme. A scheme which proved to be just a little too clever. It's a tale titled Death Rings Down the Curtain. Be sure to be with us again next time, when the sound of the great gong heralds another strange and exciting tale from the Sealed Book. The Sealed Book, written by Bob Arthur and David Cogan, is produced and directed by Jock McGregor.
You're listening to HOJO Radio. More classic old-time radio coming your way next.
The Sealed Book. Once again, the keeper of the book has opened the ponderous door to the secret vault, wherein is kept the great sealed book, in which is recorded all the secrets and mysteries of mankind through the ages. Here are tales of every kind, tales of murder, of madness, of dark deeds, strange and terrible beyond all belief. Keeper of the book, I would know what tale we tell this time. Open the great book and let us read. Slowly, the great book opens. One by one, the keeper of the book turns the pages and stops. Ah, the strange story of a beautiful young actress who tried the most difficult role of her life when she impersonated death to win a prize of millions of dollars. A tale titled Death Rings Down the Curtain. And here is the tale, Death Rings Down the Curtain, as it is written in the pages of the sealed book. In the darkened bedroom of Martha Richards, a room where the blinds are always shut, young Dr. Smith is listening intently through his stethoscope to the laboring heart of his elderly, crotchety patient.
Well, how much longer are you going to keep thumping me with that stethoscope, you old quack?
I've finished examining you now.
Well, don't just stand there without saying a word. How am I? How much time have I got left?
Well, that's difficult to say. If you will avoid all excitement, I think I can say a year, possibly 2.
A year, possibly 2.
Yes, but only if you do as I say. Now, there's no reason at all why you should insist on remaining in this darkened bedroom month after month. Why, it's been a year since you've been out of this room.
Oh, you're going to start on that again.
And what's more, Mrs. Richards, this living in utter seclusion is bad for your health. You should leave this room and see people.
No, Doctor, no. I won't have my maid pushing me around in a wheelchair, the object of everyone's pity. I prefer to remain in this room and have people think of me as I was, not as I am.
Very well. Only I can't see why you refuse to have visitors. It would give you some interest in life.
It may surprise you to know, Doctor, that I'm expecting 2 visitors, though it isn't because of anything you've said.
I'm sure it isn't.
That's the way my heart is. I think it's about time I was drawing up a will. Before I do so, I want to get acquainted with my only living relatives, a niece and a nephew from my husband's side of the family.
And they're the 2 visitors you're expecting?
Yes. I haven't seen Gerald and Mildred since they were children. I'm very curious to see what they grew up to be like. I understand Mildred's an actress.
An actress? You don't mean that Millie Richards is your niece, do you?
Yes. Have you heard of her?
Of course. Everyone has. She's one of Broadway's leading actresses. I saw her in a play recently and thought she was excellent.
Probably drinks and smokes and has been married 3 or 4 times. And her brother Gerald is probably an heir-to-wheel who's never worked a day in his life.
Aren't you being a bit unfair, judging the 2 of them before you've even seen them?
That remains to be seen, Doctor. Before I draw up my will, I intend to learn everything about them. I'll give them both every opportunity to prove they're worthy of part of the Richards' fortune.
When do you expect them?
They said they'd be here in time for dinner, which means they should be on their way here now.
How's the hangover, brother dear? Painful, I hope.
What am I doing in this car? Where are we going?
Have you forgotten, darling? This is the day we were invited to visit Aunt Martha. You remember dear old Aunt Martha. She's the one with all that lovely money.
Oh, save it, will you? I'm in no mood for your witticisms.
Considering that I spent half of last night looking for you under nightclub tables, Gerald, you might be a little more grateful.
Oh, my head. What a night.
Yes, wasn't it, darling? Every place I went looking for you, they gave me IOUs you'd left behind. Exactly how much do you owe around town?
$11,000. Millie, you gotta help me. If I don't pay up soon, I'll be in real trouble.
What exactly am I supposed to do?
You've got to lend me enough money to hold off my creditors.
Lend you money? You may not know it, brother dear, but I'm far deeper in debt than you are.
But you were getting $1,000 a week as the lead in Let Us Be Merry. How can you possibly be in debt?
It's all very simple, darling. I was getting $1,000 a week and spending $2,000 a week.
Well, that makes everything just perfect. Both of us so deeply in debt, we probably don't dare go back to town.
Perhaps after our visit to Aunt Martha, we will be able to go back to town.
What do you mean by that?
Why do you think Aunt Martha sent us an invitation to visit her?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Aunt Martha's getting on in years, and unless I'm very much mistaken, she's decided to draw up a will. Naturally, before doing so, she wants to see what her only living relatives are like.
Millie, do you really think she'll leave us some money?
If we play our cards right, all we've got to do is convince Aunt Martha that we deserve it.
How are we going to do that?
By showing her that we're lovable, simple, and unspoiled. Gerald, do you remember the ingenue role I played in I Dream of Love?
Yes, of course. You weren't half bad.
Half bad? Why, I was superb. The critics were mad about me. How dare you say I was only half bad?
All right. You were superb. What about it?
I think I shall play that role for Aunt Martha. Just a simple, unsophisticated girl, untouched by success.
How am I supposed to behave? I'm no actor.
You just play the strong, silent type, Gerald, and leave all the talking to me. And when the curtain rings down on my special performance for Aunt Martha, the Richards' fortune will be ours.
Come in.
Hello, Aunt Martha.
It's us, Aunt Martha.
Oh, come in, Mildred. Gerald. It's been quite a number of years since we've seen each other, hasn't it?
Yes, it has been, Aunt Martha.
I've been meaning to call on you for ever so long, Aunt Martha, but something always interfered at the last moment.
Well, what finally brought you here?
Well, when you mentioned in your letter that you were ill and would like to see us, I simply couldn't stay away. I dropped everything to come here.
I'm extremely grateful. Of course, the fact that you might possibly get an inheritance had nothing to do with it.
Why, Aunt Martha, what a thing to say.
Martha, Millie doesn't need money. Why, she's one of the finest actresses on Broadway.
So I've heard. What do you do for a living, Gerald?
Huh? What do I do?
Yes, Gerald, what do you do?
Gerald works for a Wall Street firm, Aunt Martha. Yes, he works so hard, and they pay him so little.
Well, unless I'm very much mistaken, Gerald was left quite a sizable inheritance by his father. Whatever became of that?
The inheritance?
Oh, that was lost in poor investments, Aunt Martha.
I see. Well, I'm afraid there's a good deal about you two that I don't know.
I haven't done very much. I haven't gotten very far, Aunt Martha, but Millie's really been a credit to the family name. Everyone's heard of her.
Now, see here. I want you and Millie to be my guests for a week. Frankly, I want to know what you're like before I draw up my will.
Of course, Aunt Martha. And I do hope that you'll take care of yourself so that you'll live for years and years.
Thank you, Millie. Now, I'm afraid I must ask you two to leave, as I'm a bit tired.
Why, certainly, Aunt Martha.
If we can do anything for you, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you.
I'm glad we're out of there. The old lady stares at a person as though she can see through him.
The room's so dark, it was difficult to see her. But you can tell she won't last much longer.
Yes, but the main point is, did she fall for our little act? If you ask me, your performance hardly swept her off her feet.
Nonsense. I played my role perfectly. Just give me a week, darling, and you and I will be the sole heirs to the Richards' fortune.
And now to continue the story. Death rings down the curtain, as it is written in the sealed book. For a week, Millie and Gerald have been living with their Aunt Martha, trying to convince her that they are worthy of inheriting her great fortune. And Millie, sure that they have succeeded, is waiting for Gerald to return to tell him the news.
Hello, Millie.
Gerald, where have you been all night? I've looked everywhere for you.
I spent the night in town.
Well, you've been drinking.
So what?
Oh, you fool. What if Aunt Martha were to hear about it, just when everything's working out perfectly?
So everything's working out perfectly, is it?
Yes. I told you if you'd leave her to me, it would. Last night, Aunt Martha made a phone call to New York. Gerald, it was her attorney she was calling, and he's coming here tonight to draw up her will.
You don't say. Well.
Well, you don't sound very enthusiastic at being named one of Aunt Martha's heirs.
My dear Millie, it may interest you to know that the greatest performance of your career has gone for nothing.
What do you mean?
You may be able to sweep a Broadway audience off its feet, but not Aunt Martha.
Oh, why, I tell you, she believes in me utterly.
Oh, does she?
Yes, she does.
It may come as quite a shock, but while Aunt Martha was listening so devotedly to your every word, she had a private investigator in New York at work investigating.
Private investigator? You mean Aunt Martha's been checking on our past?
That's the general information I received.
Why, that double-crossing old hag.
Yes, and no doubt you can guess what she'll do when she learns that I happened a job on Wall Street and that I gambled my inheritance away. And what do you think she'll say when she hears you were named as correspondent in 3 divorce actions and were involved in the Wainwright scandal?
Oh, I'd like to scratch out those staring eyes of hers, playing with me like a cat with a mouse.
Well, the game's up. We may as well go up to our rooms and pack.
What? Walk out on a $4 million inheritance? I should say not. There must be something we can do about it.
Yes, well, what, for example?
Well, I don't know yet. Let me think. I won't go back to the city beaten, deeply in debt. And Martha may think she's clever, but she won't beat me. Before she cuts me out of her will, I'll... Yes.
What are you planning, Millie?
Gerald, if we play our cards right, you and I will inherit the entire Richards fortune in spite of anything Aunt Martha can do. Now listen, this is what I want to do.
As Millie explained her idea, Gerald's face became white. But in spite of his fears, he finally agreed to do exactly as Billy asked. Then in the hours that followed, Millie locked herself in her room and practiced her aunt's signature over and over until she was finally satisfied. And that evening, as the clock struck 8, Millie and Gerald silently stole down the hall to the door of their aunt's room.
Millie, let's not go through with this. It's madness.
Quiet, you fool. I tell you, it's the only way out.
But what if we're caught? You know what that'd mean.
I tell you, we won't be caught if you do exactly as I say. I've everything worked out perfectly, to the last detail. Get hold of yourself. I'm going to knock. You know exactly what you're to do.
Yes.
Come in. Good evening, Aunt Martha.
I hope you're feeling well, Aunt Martha.
Oh, Mildred, Gerald, eh? Come in.
Thank you.
It's quite dark in here, Aunt Martha. Would you like me to turn on a light?
No, Gerald, that isn't necessary. I'm quite used to being in the dark.
Of course.
How are you feeling this evening?
Much better, thank you.
Gerald, perhaps you ought to fix Aunt Martha's pillows. She doesn't seem very comfortable.
No, you needn't bother. I'm quite comfortable, I assure you.
Gerald, fix Aunt Martha's
I can't go through with it. Do you hear? I can't.
Fool, I should have known better than to count on you.
Mildred, what's Gerald talking about?
Nothing important, Aunt Martha. Here, let me fix this pillow
I
for
tell you, I don't want
Millie, don't.
Mildred,
Millie, don't. She's suffocating.
Quiet, you hear? You haven't got the nerve to go through with it. I have. There. I think that's enough to bring on a heart attack. How do you feel, Aunt Martha?
You're nothing but a murderess. Oh, my heart.
Millie, is she dead?
Yes, Gerald, and not from suffocation, but from a heart attack. I told you it would work out.
I had nothing to do with it, do you hear? You murdered her, I didn't.
In the eyes of the law, Gerald, you're my accomplice, and nothing you might say can make it otherwise. We haven't time to discuss that. Aunt Martha's attorney should be here in an hour. Now, will you do as I say, or won't you?
I have no choice in the matter.
No, you're acting sensibly. Do exactly as I say, and we can't fail.
The car just stopped in front of the house. It must be Mr. Jordan, Aunt Martha's attorney.
It certainly is punctual.
Are you ready?
I need a little more shading here under my eyes.
Hurry, Millie. He'll be up here in a minute.
Gerald, I've never been late for a curtain yet, and I won't be late for this one. There. Now, help me on with Aunt Martha's bedrobe.
Right.
There. Now, how do I look, Gerald?
You look exactly like Aunt Martha. If I didn't know her body was in that closet, I'd swear you were her.
In the dim light of this room, no one can help but take me for Aunt Martha.
Yes, but what about your voice and the things you may have to know?
Just listen to this.
Don't be ridiculous, Gerald. As mistress of this house, I answer only those questions which I wish to answer, and I assure you I shall not be tripped up.
Does that convince you?
Yes, I'm convinced. Millie, quick. Get in bed. I hear someone coming.
All right, Gerald. And please stop shaking. I tell you, we can't fail. I shall give the greatest performance of my career.
And now to continue the story. Death rings down the curtain, as it is written in the sealed book. Swiftly, Millie, made up to look like her dead Aunt Martha, slips into her aunt's bed, and then, as Gerald lights a cigarette with trembling fingers, someone knocks at the door.
Come in. Good evening, Mr. Jordan. Come in, won't you?
Well, Mrs. Richards, how are you? Why, bless me, it's been over a year since I've seen you.
Really, Mr. Jordan? Has it been that long?
Certainly has. How are your eyes? Still troubling you?
My eyes? Oh, they're much better, thank you.
Well, that's fine, Mrs. Richards. Oh, by the way, this is Mr. Wilson, my secretary.
How do you do?
I'm happy to meet you, Mrs. Richards.
I don't think, Mr. Jordan, you've met my nephew, Gerald Richards. Gerald, this is my attorney, Mr. Jordan.
Hello. How do you do, Mr. Richards?
Mr. Jordan, I want to have a will drawn up and signed tonight.
Tonight? Surely you can't be serious, Mrs. Richards. After all, your vast holdings require a will that will take you days to draw
Oh,
up.
nonsense. I'll have none of your involved 40-page wills. All I want is a simple will dividing my entire estate equally between my nephew Gerald and my niece Mildred.
But, Mrs. Richards, there are so many other details that enter into the matter of a will. For example, we must consider
Mr.
that...
Jordan, will you do as I say, or must I get another attorney to draw up my will?
Very well, Mrs. Richards. Mr. Wilson, please draw up a will dividing the entire estate between Gerald Richards and Mildred...
Mildred Richards. She's Gerald's sister.
Yes, thank you.
I'll take care of it at once, Mr. Jordan.
You mean, Mr. Jordan, you've never heard of my niece, Mildred Richards, the Broadway actress?
Oh, you mean Millie Richards? Why, yes, of course. I've seen her in quite a number of plays.
Oh, really? What do you think of her?
Well, frankly, Mrs. Richards, I think your niece has a tendency to overact.
Oh, you do you?
Yes, take this last play she was in, Let Us Be Merry. Now, I think she played it far too hard for comedy. I'd have preferred to see an actress like, say, Joan Walker play that role.
Well, that's only your opinion. I should like you to hear what the critics had to say about her performance. Gerald, will you please hand me Millie's scrapbook? You'll find it on my desk there.
Really, Aunt Martha, don't you think you
Please, Gerald.
Oh, very well.
I can understand criticism when it's justified, Mr. Jordan, but it seems to me you're going against my niece's huge public.
Here's Millie's scrapbook, Aunt Martha.
Thank you, Gerald. Now, just a moment, Mr. Jordan, and I'll read you what the critics had to say about Millie's performance in Let Us Be Merry.
Yes, I'd like to hear it.
Here we are. This is what Martin Walters, dramatic critic of the Evening Sentinel, had to say. Rarely in 30 years of theater-going has this reviewer seen such a fine flair for comedy as was displayed last night by Millie Richards in her new hit, Let Us Be Merry, and that, Mr. Jordan, is the opinion of one of the finest critics in the country.
Well, I may be wrong, Mrs. Richards. Naturally, I was only venturing a personal opinion when I said...
I have Mrs. Richards' will prepared, Mr. Jordan. I use the standard form.
Oh, yes. Let's have a look at it. Yes, it seems to be all in order.
You're sure that will, Mr. Jordan, will stand up in court?
Oh, yes. Only you'll be leaving a good many unsettled problems to your heirs.
It's quite all right. I'm sure they're capable of taking care of them. Your secretary can be one of the witnesses, can't he?
Yes, Mrs. Richards, and your maid can be the other.
Very well. Now, I'll sign first. There you are.
That's fine. Now I'll have the two witnesses sign it, and everything will be in order.
Good. I'm quite happy now that it's all settled.
You look tired, Aunt Martha.
I am, Gerald, I am. Are you finished, Mr. Jordan?
Yes, Mrs. Richards.
Good. Mary will show you and Mr. Wilson to your rooms. I'll see you in the morning. Good night.
Good night, Mrs. Richards.
Good night.
They're gone. Well, Gerald, I told you it would work.
We aren't through this yet.
Don't be a fool. The money is as good as ours. All we have to do is put Aunt Martha back in this bed. Tomorrow morning, her maid will discover her dead body, and you and I will inherit everything.
The next morning, things went exactly as Millie had foreseen. The maid found the old woman's body in her bed as if she had died in her sleep, and Dr. Smith was summoned at once. After a brief examination, he was satisfied that Martha Richards' tired heart had simply given out during the night.
Oh, I can't believe it somehow, Doctor. Aunt Martha was such a dear. It's impossible to believe she's really dead.
You mustn't feel too badly, Miss Richards. It was all over quite quickly, I'm sure. Your aunt's heart simply gave out.
But she seemed so strong and well when we left her last night. Why, when she and I were arguing, it was just like old times.
You mean you and Mrs. Richards had an argument last night?
Well, not really an argument, Doctor. They were just debating over my sister's ability as an actress.
Yes, that's all it was. I hope you won't mind, Miss Richards, but when I told your aunt, I thought that you overplayed your roles.
Oh, that's quite all right, Mr. Jordan. What did she say to that?
She almost hit the ceiling when I criticized you. She claimed that you're the finest actress in the country.
Oh, Aunt Martha was always a dear.
Strange that she should have said that, considering that she never saw Miss Richards perform.
Well, maybe she hadn't, but she pulled out a book of clippings about Miss Richards and read me what one of the critics had said about her niece.
She did what?
She read me what one of the critics had said about Miss Richards' ability as an actress.
I see. Mr. Jordan. I think your criticism of Miss Richards that she overplays is justified.
I beg your pardon. I never overplayed a role in my life.
I'm afraid, Miss Richards, that you overplayed one last night.
Last night? What do you mean?
Your Aunt Martha was an extremely proud woman. She couldn't stand to be pitied. Exactly a year ago, she became blind. And when she did, she refused to leave her room and allow people to know she'd lost her sight. Only 2 people knew of her blindness, her maid and myself.
But if Mrs. Richards was blind, how could she have read me that notice last night?
She didn't, Mr. Jordan. An egomaniac actress disguised as Mrs. Richards read her own notice to you. Isn't that so, Miss Richards?
Go ahead, tell him, Millie. You're so clever. You're the greatest actress in the world. You had everything worked out to the smallest detail.
Be quiet, you fool. They can't prove a thing. No jury in the world would believe them. I'm too great an actress to be convicted of murder. Do you hear? I'll give a performance that'll sweep a jury off its feet. They'll never forgive me. They'll never convict me.
And that is the story, as it is written in the sealed book, of how an actress tried to impersonate death and failed. Millie Richards had one more opportunity to act upon the witness stand at her trial, but again she failed. For the jury found her and her brother Gerald guilty and sentenced them to life imprisonment. Strange are the secrets of the human heart and the ways of fate in trapping men and women in their own evil schemes. And now, keeper of the book, before you close the great volume, show us the tale we tell next time. This one, yes, a weird and amazing story of a wife who loved her husband too fondly, and of another wife who came from the grave. A tale titled, Till Death Do Us Part. Be sure to be with us again next time, when the sound of the great gong heralds another strange and exciting tale from the Sealed Book. The Sealed Book, written by Bob Arthur and David Cogan, is produced and directed by Jock McGregor.
Our next broadcast is a supernatural fantasy series that ran from 1943 through 1945. There were 78 episodes produced altogether. The show's strength was stories from famous writers of the two genres, including Robert Louis Stevenson, Victor Hugo, Edgar Allan Poe, and even Charles Dickens. One of the more unusual aspects of the show was that there was no music, other than between scenes. Some have claimed that this lack of music helps to keep the show from being dated, as it remains fresh to this day. We present to you The Weird Circle on HOJO Radio.
The Weird Circle. In this cave by the restless sea, we are met to call from out of the past stories, strange and weird. Bellkeeper, toll the bell, so that all may know we are gathered again in the Weird Circle.
are met in this cave by the restless sea to reveal the horror in man's mind. Listen to the weird circle. Out of the past, phantoms of a world gone by speak again the immortal tale, the murder of the little pig.
Down, Coquette. Down, I say. Now go to your corner. Well, come in, Monsieur Lahan. This is a surprise.
Excuse my dropping in like this, Monsieur Lecoq, but I must see you.
Well, yes, of course.
It's a pretty tough customer you got there.
Coquette? Oh, she's only bluffing. Please make yourself comfortable. Now, Coquette, stay in your corner.
Coquette? Isn't that the dog that was the principal witness in your last case?
Yes, and if she only could have talked, I would have not had such a difficult time. But you've come to see me about something, my friend. What is it?
Well, you know, Lecoq, I've been plaguing you for years to let me write up some of your interesting criminal cases. You know, are probably the most popular citizen of Paris.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes, you are. Certainly the greatest detective of our time. Why, people weigh your least word. Just imagine how they devour one of your stories, fictionized.
But...
Now, you aren't putting me off any longer. My paper says get Lecoq's stories or get out. You don't want to see me lose my job.
Oh, hardly. All right, my young friend Lahan. You've bearded me at last in my own den. But I've known a lifetime of crime. Where would I begin?
Well, what about your last case, which involved the dog, Coquette?
Indeed, why not? That was a baffling mystery. It had a strange, unearthly element, which has never been explained. And it centered around a very pretty woman.
Well, it sounds made to order. And, by the way, how did you happen to acquire the dog?
Well, that's part of the story. We'll come to that. Now, let me think a bit about this story. Maybe I should refer to my notes. It's file number 23. Yes, and here it is. The murder of the little pig.
Well, does one murder pigs?
This kind, monsieur. You know how Parisians are. They're forever giving names to people whose appearance or personality reminds them of animals. In French criminal history, we've had the wolf, the fox, the rabbit, the leopard.
That's true.
And the little hairdresser, Henri Coudray, was called the little pig. Well, it was past midnight when I received word to hurry to the Rue Batignolles. That murder had been done. When I arrived, the police commissioner took me to the scene of the crime. And there on the bedroom floor, the body lay in the position in which it had fallen.
Well, there's little for you to do in this case, Lecoq. Old Henri Coudray, called the Little Pig, has been stabbed to death. And we know who the murderer is.
Oh, well, that's pretty fast work, isn't it? Or was the murderer caught in the act?
No, the murdered man himself enlightened us. Look. Look there on the floor beside the body.
Say, that's a name written in blood on the parquet floor. It's a gruesome sight, isn't it? What is the word? It's M-O-N-I-S.
Monish, the first half of the name Monistro, nephew of the murdered man. The little pig died before he could finish the name, but he gave us enough. You see, Jean Monistro is the sole heir to Coudray's large fortune. What a cinch of a case.
You think the old man started to write the name of his murderer in his own blood?
What else is there to think?
Well, I don't know. Have you noticed the expression on the face of the corpse? Death must have been instantaneous because Coudray died calm and smiling. His assailant must have been known to him.
Of course Coudray knew his own nephew.
Yeah, but only a hope of revenge could have given so much energy to a dying old man. Imagine how desperately he would struggle to write the name. Why, every split second would count. He knew his life was expiring. And have you noticed something else, Commissioner? The name is written on the right side of the body.
And written with the forefinger of the right hand. Oh, come now, Lecoq. This is a simple case. Don't try to make something complicated out of you. I'll convince you. I want you to hear the testimony of the caretaker. Oh, Jacques. Jacques, come in here a minute.
Yes, monsieur.
Now, will you tell Monsieur Lecoq what happened last evening?
Oh, yes, monsieur. Gladly. It was about 9 o'clock when the little pig's nephew, Jean Ministro, came to see his uncle.
Mm-hmm. Did you see Ministro face to face?
Well, no, monsieur. You see, my apartment is on the first floor.
Yeah.
And John had already started to walk up the stairs when I looked out my door.
Oh, so then you only saw the man's back?
Well, yes, monsieur. But he had on a suit I had seen Jean wear time and time again. If I did not see his face, I did see his little black dog, Coquette.
Our chief witness, Lecoq, is the little black dog. For it was he who witnessed the murder.
But tell me, Jacques, exactly what happened.
Well, monsieur, nothing really happened. I saw Jean going upstairs and the dog Coquette tagging along behind.
Mm-hmm.
That was at 9 o'clock. And then at about 9:30... I'm a great one to look at my watch, monsieur. At 9:30, I heard the entrance door open, and I saw Jean Ministro leave the building with the dog.
Commissioner, what time do you fix the murder?
Between 9:15 and 9:30.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jacques, did you see Jean Ministro's face as he left the house?
Well, no, monsieur. I only saw his back. But I would swear it was Jean, all right.
There's no doubt it was Jean Ministro who killed his uncle to get his inheritance. I've ordered my men to arrest Ministro.
Yes. Commissioner, have you observed that the night table is on the left side of the bed? And there's a newspaper dropped to the left of that chair. And an empty wine glass on the left of the desk.
Oh, go home and go to bed, Lecoq. I'm not going to let you make a mystery out of this plain, simple case.
I know, but I can't reconcile the peaceful, smiling expression on the face of the corpse with that writing on the floor in blood. I feel in my bones that Jean Ministro is innocent.
Yeah, come in.
Commissioner, we've arrested Jean Ministro.
Have any trouble with him?
No, monsieur. Ministro has confessed to the crime.
Well, I left the scene of the crime with my opinion unchanged. Though indeed my face should have been red, what with my innocent Jean confessing. And the first witnesses I examined only strengthened the state's case to establish his guilt.
Really?
Yes. I talked first to Marie, wife of Jacques, the caretaker. Marie, I believe, was an habitual eavesdropper. In any case, 3 days before the murder, Jean and his wife Clara called on the little pig Coudray, and listening in the hall, Marie overheard the uncle say...
So you visit your old uncle in the middle of the week, huh? Never heard of such a thing. Now, don't tell me you're getting so fond of me that you can't wait until your usual Sunday visit.
We've come to see you about something special, dear Uncle Henri.
Not that we don't want to see you at any time.
Well, you don't say. You'd ever expressed yourselves in such affectionate terms before. You must want something. Well, out with it. Out with it. My friends are waiting for me at the cafe for my usual glass of wine and game of cards. I can't keep them waiting all night.
Well, you see, Uncle, business is not going very well with me.
How can you run a jewelry business, Uncle, without plenty of stock? Jean simply can't design and make decent pieces.
Yes, I don't have enough stock on hand, not enough variety in jewels, and not enough general equipment. And now I have a chance to buy a jeweler's stock at the Palais Royal for 100,000 francs.
100,000 francs?
Yes.
That's a very great deal of money, Jean. Took me many years to save that much money.
But you wouldn't miss it, Uncle, and it'll put Jean on his feet.
On his feet? Or on his head? I'm not really concerned where Jean finds himself, my dear Clara. After my death, you two may throw away my money as you see fit. But until death closes these eyes, I intend to keep my money and enjoy it. Yes, all of it.
No wonder you're called the little pig.
Clara, hold your temper.
Why should I? At last I'm going to tell him what I really think of him.
You were even more beautiful, Madame Clara, when you were angry. But you should watch your words. I just might take it into my head to leave all my lovely money to a foundation for stray cats.
I don't care what you do with it. The money will do us no good when we're too old to enjoy it. We need 100,000 francs now. Now!
Oh, come, Clara. It's no use.
Jean is wise, Clara. I couldn't even part with the 100,000 francs I've worked so hard to earn.
Worked so hard to earn. All Paris knows how you earned your fortune. The rich, silly women whose hair you dressed took too much, didn't they? I told you enough so that you could find out more. And you blackmailed them one after the other. You blackmailed them.
Oh, Uncle, don't pay any attention to Clara. You know how impulsive she is. She doesn't know what she's saying.
I'm too old to hold grudges. I'll come now. My friends at the cafe are waiting. Good night, children. Good night. Watch the stairs. The hall is dark.
Pig. You little pig. Oh, Marie. You nearly tripped me. What are you doing out here in the hall?
Oh, merely cleaning up, madame.
This time of night. What do you take me for? Well, I'm glad you know now what kind of a man dear Uncle Henri is.
Come along, Clara. You've said enough.
Marie, when you bring up Uncle's cafe au lait in the morning, put a little arsenic in it for me, will you?
Oh, madame, how you talk.
Well, I hate the little pig. I'd kill him if I could.
Come, Clara, come. You shouldn't say such things.
Well, Marie's story made my theory of Jean's innocence seem very weak indeed.
Oh, I should think so.
Still, I insisted that when Jean left his uncle's house that night, he was not as yet a man driven to murder. Why, Jean wasn't even angry. Mm-hmm. He was not temperamentally the type to murder in cold blood.
I say.
But Lahan, early in the morning after the murder, a surprise witness brought the guillotine even nearer to Jean Monistro. A well-dressed matron, Madame Dupont, told us this story. On the day previous, at some 10 hours or so before the crime, Madame Dupont went to Jean Monistro's shop in the Rue Vivier.
Ah, good morning, Madame Dupont.
Good morning, Monsieur Monistro. I am returning the bracelet.
Oh, is there anything wrong? I thought I had repaired it very skillfully.
This is not the bracelet I brought to you, monsieur. You have substituted paste for my genuine stones.
Oh, I've done no such thing. I'll let you look at them through my glass. But I see you are right. Well, these are substitutes. Oh, I swear to you, madame, I don't know how it happened. I don't know what to say.
Perhaps your wife will know what to say.
What do you mean by that, madame?
Your wife was in the shop yesterday when I called for the bracelet. I thought she acted very strangely. She avoided looking at me and was eager for me to leave. She is not a good thief, monsieur.
But I can't believe that Clara would do such a thing.
Well, if you didn't remove the stones, monsieur, who else except your wife had the opportunity?
No one. Clara knows the work well enough to make the substitutions herself.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it all. Poor Clara's been worried half sick. We need money, and my uncle refused to help us. Clara did this thing for me.
You love your wife very much, don't you, monsieur?
Oh, yes, very much, madame. I swear I'll get the jewels back for you. Please don't go to the police.
Why do you think I'd come to you, monsieur? I could have gone at once to the police. But I am a sentimental woman, and I have eyes in my head. One doesn't often see a man so much in love with his wife.
Oh, then you will promise to wait a little? I'll get the jewels back for you.
But what if she's already sold them? What if she spent the money? Can you buy such valuable jewels?
Don't worry, madame. I'll get the money. I'll get it somehow.
And so you see, Lahan, Madame Dupont furnished the state with the strongest possible motive in the case against Jean Monistro.
Yes, I see.
But doubt as to his guilt persistently tugged at my mind. It was still early morning, and Jean had not been examined since his confession on the previous night. I wanted to get to him before he became exhausted and confused with the questions of others. I found Jean sullen in his cell and unwilling to talk.
I have nothing to say, monsieur. I've confessed. What more do you want?
But why did you confess, Jean?
That's a queer question. I guess the answer is I'm a man who doesn't know how to hold out. Hadn't gotten away with a murder, I think...
Jean, where did you buy the revolver you used?
I had it in my possession a long time. Years, I guess.
What did you do with it after you killed your uncle?
I threw it into the Seine.
Your little black dog, Coquette, misses you, Jean. She won't eat.
I wish I could have her here with me. She was a one-man dog. Coquette followed me everywhere. Please go now, monsieur. I've no more to say to you.
I left Jean now convinced that he was innocent. But where in all Paris would I find the guilty one? I decided next to go to the Rue Vivienne and call on Madame Clara.
What can I do for you, monsieur? No one is here. I mean to say, poor monsieur is away, and madame is just leaving.
Well, who are you, young woman?
Sybil, madame's maid. Now, if you wish to leave an order, or if you wish to buy anything...
I'm not here to buy, mademoiselle. I am Lecoq of the police department.
Oh.
I must speak to Madame Ministro.
Oh, my goodness, monsieur. Right away. Madame.
I'm right here, Sybil. I heard what the gentleman said. Down, Coquette. Go on, go back in the room. Take him with you.
Come along, Coquette. Like a good dog.
Well, you have a very good watchdog, Madame.
Jewelers keep good watchdogs, monsieur.
Does your dog never make up to strangers?
No, never. Coquette really only likes my husband. Why are you here? I heard you say you're from the police department.
Yes. Here is my identification.
I see. Well, perhaps you know I've received a summons to appear at court this afternoon for examination. I must leave in a few moments.
Yes, I know, but I wanted to speak to you before you left.
Oh?
Do you think your husband is innocent, Madame?
I'm sure of it. Jean couldn't kill a fly.
So it has seemed to me. Jean is not the type to kill even a fly. But you know that your husband has confessed.
I'm sure that Jean is convinced that I killed his uncle. He knew how I hated Uncle Henri. And then I did something foolish, monsieur.
Oh?
We needed money, and I borrowed some jewels. I believe that Jean found it out. But he didn't know that I still have the jewels, and I'm going to give them back to Madame Dupont. I'm sure he thought I was desperate, that I'd sold the jewels, spent the money, and then got frightened and killed his uncle, whom I hated, so that we could get the inheritance.
You have your husband's reasoning pretty well figured out, haven't you, Madame?
Oh, but I know Jean so well.
Did you kill his uncle?
No, monsieur. And I have 3 witnesses that I was home that night. It was hot, and I asked 3 neighbor ladies in to have ice cream with me. They were here from 9 o'clock till after 10.
Well, if you have 3 witnesses, you have indeed a perfect alibi. But where was your husband at that time?
Well, it's quite unfortunate, but Jean went to see a workman about making some artificial pearls.
Oh.
Everything was unlucky that night for Jean. The workman wasn't at home. And I haven't been able to find anyone who saw Jean all evening.
What time did he leave the house?
About 8:30. He came home about 10:30. I know what you're thinking. Jean was away at exactly the right time for him to have gone to his uncle's apartment and killed him and returned. But I know Jean's innocent. I know it.
Where was the dog during the evening?
Coquette? It's a funny question. Well, I didn't notice where the dog went. Still, I believe Coquette followed her master. Yes, I'm sure she must have followed Jean.
La Hand, Madame Clara was from first to last a mystery to me. When I left the shop, I decided to question Madame Clara's neighbors and find out what they thought of her. They talked readily.
A pretty woman, but extravagant.
Madame Clara has admirers, lots of admirers.
I don't know anything about her. Madame is discreet.
She drove her husband to the crime, that's what I think. Yes, she had lots of admirers, but who can say one thing wrong about her?
And while talking to Madame Clara's neighbors, the idea came to me, which I was sure would put me on the trail I was seeking.
Well, what was that?
I had already seen Madame leave the house, so I knew I could find the maid, Sybil, alone when I returned to the shop.
Oh, monsieur, Madame has left.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. Madame gave me the name of a friend of hers, and I've lost the card it was written on. Now, a bright girl like you wouldn't be so careless, would you, Sybil?
Oh, monsieur, you have a good memory. You remembered my name.
And I couldn't easily forget. The name goes with such a pretty thing.
Oh, monsieur, now you joke with me.
No, Sybil, I'm entirely sincere before such youthful charm.
Oh.
And I can see how bright you are, too. I'll bet you can tell me the name of that gentleman. You know, he's the only man beside Monsieur Ministro himself, the only other person the dog Coquette would follow.
Oh, you mean Monsieur Victor?
Exactly, Victor. How silly of me to forget such a simple name. And his address was... Oh, let me see.
Oh, Rue Doré, number 23. It's not far from here.
Yes, of course. It's hard to account for the affections of animals, isn't it? Now, Coquette is unfriendly to everyone, so I'm told, to everyone outside the immediate family, and yet she's so friendly with Monsieur Victor that she would actually follow him.
Oh, well, you see, Monsieur Victor used to own Coquette, but he gave her as a present to Madame and Monsieur Ministro because they needed a watchdog. Oh, but Coquette still loves her former master. She often visits him.
Well, that's a quaint habit, isn't it? But I suppose the Ministros must lock up the dog so she doesn't go off visiting at night.
No, they don't bother to lock her up if they're staying home.
No?
Coquette often runs over to Monsieur Victor's after supper, around 7, and doesn't come back before 10. That is, if she can get out. Now, this week, Coquette's been a regular gadabout. She's been over to Monsieur Victor's every single night.
I knew before I was out of the Rue Vivienne the course of action I would take. It was bold, but it would save weeks of investigation. As you know, Lahand, it's in my character to take risks, and when I'm near the solution of a case, I'm inclined to be dramatic.
Yes, I know.
And especially in a case like this, where the evidence is purely circumstantial. Well, it took 3 days to study the house and the habits of Monsieur Victor, and to make other careful preparations. But it was an uncanny and strange circumstance that finally turned the case. On the 4th night, according to plan, Monsieur Victor was kept out very late. When he reached his apartment, he went to bed promptly and then to sleep very quickly, for he had been drinking a great deal of wine. But presently, Monsieur Victor was awakened by a voice, by an unforgettable voice.
Monsieur Victor, wake up. Wake up, Monsieur Victor.
Who are you?
You know who I am well enough. I am Andre Coudray, the old man you murdered.
Go away. Go away, little pig. Leave me in peace. Why do you come every night like this? Why do you stand there and look at me like that with that ghastly smile and the cut in your throat? Don't go away. Go away.
No, monsieur. It's no good hiding your head. I will come back and come back until I have driven you out of your mind.
But what do you want? What do you want?
Why did you kill me? Any man has a right to know why he was killed.
If I tell you, will you go away? Will you promise never to come back?
Yes, I promise. Now, tell me, and I will stay quite silently dead.
All right. All right, I'll tell you. I love Clara. I dressed like Jean, took the dog Coquette to your house and killed you. And now Jean will go to the guillotine. Clara will inherit your money, and in time we shall be married. I killed 3 birds with 1 stone. Got rid of you and Jean, and Clara will have your money.
Very clever, Monsieur Victor. And you wrote part of Jean's last name in my blood on the floor, didn't you?
Yes, that finished it. Now go back. Go back to your grave and stay there.
All right, men, grab him.
No.
You're under arrest, Louis Victor.
No.
Danton, turn up the light.
There's no use studying.
What is this?
Take that gun away from me. All right, now he's handcuffed.
Well, Danton, that was a very good performance.
Well, thank you, Lecoq. It was a pleasure.
Who is that man? He's the image of Andre Coudray.
This is Philippe Danton from the Comédie Française.
How do you
Very
do?
good actor.
How do you do?
Well rehearsed and perfectly made up. You know, I'm almost ashamed to work this ancient trick, having an actor pretend to be a ghost. But it did work.
Oh, don't boast, Monsieur Lecoq. You had little to do with the success of your trick. The little pig Andre Coudray made your trick work.
Are you trying to tell me that a dead man helped us?
I believe he did.
What?
For the last 3 nights, I've dreamt a vivid dream, the same dream each night. I dreamt that Andre Coudray stood at the foot of my bed exactly as I saw this actor. Coudray did not speak in my dream, but when I heard his voice tonight, I was not surprised. I believe my dream had come true, that the apparition was really there, and that Andre Coudray wanted to know why I'd killed him, that if I told him, he would go and leave me in peace.
What? Are you really telling me the truth, that you actually dreamed of seeing Henri Coudray as you saw the actor Danton tonight?
Oh, what reason do I have to lie? You've got my confession now. It was not you, but the little pig Andre Coudray who trapped me.
And so, Monsieur Lahand, that is my file number 23. Do you think it will give you a good story?
Good story? It's amazing. Oh, by the way, you haven't told me how you came by the dog, Coquette.
Oh. Coquette, come here. You may leave your corner now. Come here, girl. Jean Ministre was so grateful to me for releasing him from facing the guillotine that he insisted on giving me his dearest possession, Coquette. She's a fine little dog.
Yes. You know, I'm afraid I'd make a poor detective. I lost sight of some of your clues. Now, what made you so sure that Jean Ministro was innocent?
Well, sometimes the things that are not seen are near enough to put the eyes out.
Yeah?
You remember how I had observed that the night table, water, wine glass, and so on were all at the left side for convenience?
Mm-hmm.
But the letters we found on the floor, M-O-N-I-S, were at the right of the body, written with the right hand. Well, I later confirmed my first impression that Coudray was left-handed. And besides, the police commissioner had greeted me with the information that Coudray had been stabbed. But later, I asked Jean in his cell what he had done with the revolver, and he answered that he had thrown it into the river Seine.
Well, I suppose Clara was convicted as Victor's accomplice, wasn't she?
No, we suspected her, but suspicions are not proof. She denied knowing of Victor's affection for her, and we could get absolutely nothing against her. But always I have wondered, was Clara merely a clever, discreet woman and a good actress? Was she Victor's accomplice? What do you think?
From the time-worn pages of the past, we have brought you the story, The Murder of the Little Pig. Bellkeeper, toll the bell.
From the time-worn pages of the past, we have heard another immortal tale in The Weird Circle. Bellkeeper, toll the bell. Be here in this lonely cave by the restless sea once again next time for another immortal tale in The Weird Circle.
You're listening to HOJO Radio. Stay tuned.
The Weird Circle. In this cave by the restless sea, we are met to call from out of the past stories, strange and weird. Bellkeeper, toll the bell, so that all may know we are gathered again in the Weird Circle.
Out of the past, phantoms of a world gone by, speak again the immortal tale, The Spectre of Tappington.
This house, Tappington Everard, called Tapton for short, is an antiquated but commodious manor house in the English countryside of Kent. It was built by our ancestor, Sir Giles Inglesby, who was High Sheriff to Queen Elizabeth. I myself am Tom Inglesby, 14th heir to this forbidding old house. Set on a grove of tall, dark trees, legends have sprung up about it that add gloom to its sinister reputation. One autumn weekend during the grass season, every guest room in the manor house was occupied. That is, every one except the oak chamber. Little did we know that the unexpected arrival of our distant cousin and good friend, Lieutenant Charles Seaforth, would cause the dark mysteries of that oak room to intrude themselves upon us in such a strange way. A telegram that morning had warned us of his arrival, that he was on leave, invalided home from India. So it was with glad surprise and open arms that I welcomed the young lieutenant to Tapton. Well, Charles, old chap, I say it was good to see you.
Hello, Tom. How are you?
Back from the land of the Rogers, what? Welcome to Tapton.
Thanks, Tom. It's good to be back in England, and best of all, to be here with you and...
And Carolyn. I know that mine are not the charms that bring you here, but those of my lively, lovely sister. Well, here's your childhood heartthrob almost falling down the stairs in her eagerness to greet you.
Charles, my dear, how wonderful to have you here.
Carolyn, you're lovelier than ever. Lovelier than I dreamed. May I kiss you?
Of course, Charles. Oh, Charles, it must have been dreadful in India.
Well, it was a bit of a show for a while.
We heard you were on the wounded list.
No, just a tap on the old bean, a touch of fever, but I'm fit now.
You look wonderfully well, Charles. Thinner, perhaps just a bit older.
A broth of a boy has come back to us a man, Caroline. And what a man.
Charles, dear, we've had to put you in the oak room.
Yes, as our housekeeper, old Bollersby, puts it, the house is chock full up. Hope you don't mind, old boy.
Why should I mind? Sounds very important, really. Is it an attic nook?
Oh, no, it's the guest chamber, or always was until some rather weird stories
Charles,
began
not
to...
now.
What? Sorry.
What we mean, Charles, is simply that the oak room is very old.
Oh, but I love old rooms and old houses. Oh, what a magnificent hall. This Tapton of yours is a baronial beauty. A perfect setting for good old Queen Bess. I can almost see her ghost moving along up there on the gallery and wafting majestically down the stairs.
Charles, please.
What?
We don't like to think about ghosts here.
Oh? Is Tapton haunted?
Well, I'm afraid we've had our moments.
No, as soon as I've shown you off to some of my guests, Charles, Carol and I will conduct you on a special tour of the premises.
I'd like that no end.
Good. Well, come along then into the library. I think you'll remember Jack Overton and Fanny Simpkinson and many of the others. Charles was fascinated by the old manor. We showed him every nook and cranny from gallery to scullery. Then, that evening after a good and jovial dinner, some of us were gathered around the library fire when the legendary spectre of Tapton became the theme of the conversation.
Did they show you the blood stain?
Yes, it didn't look like blood to me, Fanny.
But it is blood, Charles. Human blood. And for 300 years, no sandstone or soap has budged it.
Cheerful little antique.
Did you take him into the glen, frowning darkly as of yore?
Not yet, Jack. Oh, it's gruesome. Let's go there tomorrow before breakfast.
All right.
You know, they say the keeper's daughter was seen to enter it, but nothing was ever seen again.
Oh, stop, Fanny. You're breaking my heart. My nerves can't stand it. She never was seen by mortal eyes again.
Oh, never.
How did you like the ancestral portraits? Nightmarish old codgers, eh?
Mr. Rogerton, sir, you speak of me ancestors.
Oh, sorry, old fellow, but you must admit Sir Giles is no rose.
Yes, I've seen his like in horror films. What's his history, Tom?
Well, dark and dismal tradition has it that his wicked licentiousness was above the average even for those days.
What was his special vice? Murder. Oh, how thrilling. Who did he kill?
Yes, tell us the story, Carolyn.
Shall I, Tom?
Go ahead. I'll turn off some of the lights. Tell the gory legend, sis. Scare 'em.
Well, you asked for it, my friends. Here it is. One night, long, long ago, a stranger guest came to Tapton. Though he and Sir Giles met in apparent friendship, the scowl on the squire's brow showed the visitor to be unwelcome. Nevertheless, the banquet was not spared. The wine circulated freely. Too freely, perhaps, for the servants heard loud and angry quarreling. The stranger, cold menace in his voice, was heard to say that there were documents within his pocket which could disprove Sir Giles' right to Tapton.
Documents that proved his inheritance?
Oh, don't interrupt, Jack. Go on, Carolyn. Who was the stranger? Rumor was rife. It seems the old retainers had heard talk in their youth that an heir who disappeared in early life had left a son in foreign lands.
So you and Tom may not be the rightful owners of Tapton after all.
That's right. Some long-lost cousin from far-off lands may come to claim it. Joe.
Huh?
You're our distant cousin, Charles.
And from a foreign land.
Oh, no, I assure you I have no documents in my trousers. But go on with the legend. What happened?
The revelers finished their party and sought their beds. The stranger fell into drunken sleep in the oaken chamber.
In my room?
Your room.
The next morning he was found, a swollen and blackened corpse. No marks of violence, but his lips were livid, and dark-colored spots appeared on his skin. The word poison was whispered, but no one dared say it aloud.
I see. Was it murder?
Sir Giles' personal leech pronounced it an apoplexy, and the nameless stranger was buried in haste.
It's a ghastly story, Carolyn.
Wait, I haven't told you the most curious part of the legend. Huh? The mysterious disappearance of the stranger's trunk. His trunk? His breeches, stupid. The supposed hiding place of the document. Oh. His clothes were all there. Jerkin, waistcoat, cloak, but no sign of those puffed velvet short pants the Elizabethans wore. They say the evil one was in the oak room that night.
And I am to sleep in this self-same oaken boudoir, huh? Well, how about ghosts?
Oh, some miracle mongers have it that the ghost of Sir Giles has been slipping out by the postern gate to the glen, searching and digging and wringing his hands.
Did they ever find the breeches?
Well, years ago, gardeners doing some work in the glen dug up an ancient garment with bits of gold embroidery, and out fell some papers, perfectly illegible from damp and age.
Did they really belong to the nameless stranger?
Who knows? Perhaps they did. I've just been telling you the legend of Tapton.
I must say, you've given me a fine build-up for a peaceful night's sleep.
I shan't dare turn out the light in my room.
Well, spooks or no spooks, it's early up in the morning, so I'm off to Slumberland. Ghostly dreams to you all. Good night, Fanny.
Good night.
Well, strange cousin from foreign lands, remember the legend. After all, you may be the real owner of the manor.
Oh, rot. I don't want your old manor, if I can have its lady.
Is this a proposal, Charles, dear?
What do you think?
I see this is my cue to exit. Good night, you lovebirds.
Good night, Tom.
And, it might be a good idea to lock your door, Charles.
Thanks, I will, never fear.
I myself wasted a few moments of healthy sleep, worrying lest Carolyn's story had disturbed my guests. But as far as I knew, a peaceful night had blessed old Tappington. And then, the next morning, as I was on my way down to breakfast, I was practically knocked down by our man McGuire bumping into me. Yeah, take it easy, McGuire.
Sorry, sir. Lieutenant Seaforth's ringing like one beside himself, sir.
Go ahead and see what he wants. Carry on.
Certainly, sir. Sorry, sir.
I followed McGuire to the landing and stood watching as he knocked on the door.
Come in. Ah, McGuire, at last.
Yes, sir.
Where are my trousers?
Your breeches, sir?
Yes, what have you done with them?
Me, sir? I never a thing, sir.
Well, it must have been the devil, then. I put them on that armchair when I got into bed, and by heaven, now they're gone.
Would it be Miss Carolyn or Miss Fanny playing some sort of a joke, sir?
Oh, not probable, McGuire. Not possible, in fact, because I locked myself in. Wait. Is there any other entrance to this room?
Well, there is the secret staircase to the postern, sir. Over there.
Of course. That's the way they must have come. I'll go and see. Let's see here. No chance, McGuire. 2 heavy bolts, both fastened on the inside. I must say it's all very strange.
Funny it is indeed, sir.
Funny, McGuire? No, not too funny.
We had almost finished breakfast when Charles appeared. I noticed he wore immaculately tailored riding breeches, perfect for a day on the saddle, but scarcely the costume for our planned grass shooting. However, I made no comment, as his manner was so strange. He stood on smiling in the doorway of the dining room, staring at the girls. Carolyn seemed annoyed.
Come, Charles, the tea is absolutely cold. Your breakfast will be spoilt. Why are you so late?
Sorry?
What became of our excursion to the glen?
When I was a young man, punctuality was required of all well...
When you were a young man, sir, young ladies didn't play practical jokes.
Whatever are you talking about, Charles?
Oh, don't mind me, Carolyn. I've just been made a fool of, that's all.
Obviously, something was troubling Charles. Occasionally, he darted a penetrating glance at the girls. However, a glorious day in the field seemed to snap him out of this troubled mood. As a matter of fact, Charles took a leading part in planning the picnic we were to have the next day. There was no talk of ghosts, nor any mention of legends. It had rained during the night and turned much colder, so you will understand the amazement it caused when Charles came down to breakfast next day in his uniform tropical shorts.
Charles! You're surely not going to ride through our lanes in such toggery as that.
You do surprise us with your costume changes.
Well, what the well-dressed man will wear. He thinks he's back in the jungle, that's all. Poor lad, he's quite balmy.
Look here, Ogleton, I'll thank you to...
Heavens above, Charles. Won't you get very wet after all the rain? You'd better drive in the carriage with me.
Thank you, Fanny. I'll ride as planned with my cousins.
During this banter, Carolyn said not a word. I could see she was worried sick over Charles. However, the picnic was a great success. I wandered away from my guests because I wanted to be alone for a while and see if I could think out any reason for Charles' eccentric behavior. I was worried. Frankly worried that maybe his head wound had been more serious than he realized. I must have dozed off, for I was suddenly aware that I was an eavesdropper on my sweet sister Carolyn and her adored Charles. I started to speak, but the tone of their conversation kept me silent.
Carolyn, I know you mean these crazy trousers of mine.
Well, you must admit they are a bit odd. Why ever did you wear them?
I'm not wearing these wretched things because I want to be different. Carolyn, my dear, something strange is going on in the oak room. Pair by pair, my trousers are being stolen.
Oh, Charles, dear, how simply fantastic. For heaven's sake, darling, you must be dreaming.
Carolyn, please listen to me. I'm beside myself. I was not dreaming. The first morning, I thought McGuire had taken my trousers to press them. Then I even thought you girls or Tom were playing some childish joke on me. But night before last, and again last night, I saw the ghost.
The ghost? Oh, Charles, this is too much. There isn't any ghost. You mean the spectre?
I mean just that. I saw the spectre of Tapton, that Bluebeard ancestor of yours.
Sir Giles?
Yes, Sir Giles. Walking in my bedroom with his velvet cloak, long rapier, and his Raleigh-looking hat and feather, just like his portrait. But there was one difference.
What was that?
His legs were the legs of a skeleton.
Oh, Charles.
After taking a turn about the room, seemingly looking for something, he took up my breeches and whipped his bony legs into them. Then he strutted up to the glass and studied himself.
Why didn't you call out?
I tried to, but I couldn't somehow speak.
Oh, my poor darling. It was an awful dream.
It was no dream, Carolyn. It was definitely the ghost. For then he turned and showed me the grimmest, most dreadful-looking death's head. It grinned hideously at me and then strutted out of the room suddenly.
How ghastly. Oh, I blame myself, sir, for telling you that silly legend. It's given you these nightmares.
This was no nightmare, Carolyn.
But, dear, Tapton isn't haunted. You're just remembering that stupid story I told you.
You never said one word about Sir Giles' ghost in the oak room. Not one word about his skeleton legs. Not one syllable about it.
Darling, you're overtired. You're talking rubbish.
Carolyn, I expected sympathy and understanding from you. I'm not talking rubbish. I tell you, I saw the ghost. My breeches are gone, vanished in thin air. And if the ghost didn't take them, who did?
I had never thought seriously there could be a ghost at Tapton. That legend Carolyn had told our guests that night had been intended as a joke more than anything else. In fact, since childhood, we have liked to spoof about our family spook. But it was evident that the story of Sir Giles had made a dreadful impression on Charles' mind. His strange costumes had merely amused us, but now even our guests were beginning to wonder. Next morning, as we were lingering at the breakfast table over that last bit of muffin and jam, Ogleton said,
I say, what makes Charles so touchy? He bolted from the room just now as if the old boy himself were after him.
I'm sorry I giggled at him, but, Tom, I couldn't help it. Full dress uniform at breakfast.
Is it shell-shock, Tom?
I wish I knew.
When I asked him why the fancy dress, he bit my head off.
I can still hear him saying, it's the regimental dress of the Royal Bombay Lancers, Fanny.
It was regal. Blue tunic, red striped trousers, and gold braid.
I haven't seen the like since the coronation.
It wasn't funny to Carolyn, though. She was almost in tears when she ran after him. She looked positively stricken.
Yes, my poor sister was teary-eyed all that miserable day. As for Charles, though he seemed to be making an effort to be more companionable, it only resulted in his being distantly polite. To add to my own distress in the matter, I learned that Maguire, the valet, had been kicking up quite a bobbery below stairs, boasting that on the evening before he'd seen a ghost. Maguire had overheard some of our conversations, but this claptrap about ghosts had to be stopped. So that night after our house guests had retired, I rang for Maguire.
You rang, sir?
Yes, close the door.
Yes, sir.
Now, see here, Maguire. What's this I hear about your having seen a ghost last night?
Devil a lie will I tell your honor, but last night I saw a ghost.
Oh, what rot. Don't spread such nonsensical stories. Where do you think you saw this thing?
Well, sir, we went last night for a bit of a stroll to the Glen.
We?
Myself and one of the maids, sir.
Yes. Get on.
To see the moon it was, sir. But we saw more than the moon, sir. In the shadows was a terrible ghost.
What sort of a ghost, man?
A tall gentleman he was, sir, all in white with a shovel on the shoulder of him and a big torch in his fist. Though what he wanted with that is myself can't tell, for his great eyes were like big lamps. The maid screeched holy murder and ran off with herself, and me after her.
And the ghost after you, I suppose?
No, sir. The ghost vanished in a flame of fire.
Now, Maguire, don't try gig lamps and flames of fire on me. You're making all this up. Jove, I believe you're the spectre yourself.
Me, sir? Is it myself, then, that's a play-acting ghost in your honour's thinking?
What your purpose is, I can't guess. Stealing Lieutenant Seaforth's trousers and all that.
As I have a soul, sir, I stole nothing.
No, but you're mixed up in some way with their disappearance.
'Tis the ghost, sir. I know it is. I saw him.
There isn't any ghost, Maguire. And don't go about frightening my guests with any such tale. That's all for now.
Yes, sir. Good night, sir.
I felt a strong compulsion then to go to the oak room. I wanted to know if Charles was all right. Immediately Maguire had gone, I left my room hurriedly and ran up the short flight of stairs to the oak room. I listened a moment, then rapped loudly on Seaforth's door. Charles! Charles!
Yes, who is it?
It's I, Tom.
Oh, hello. Come in. I was just about to turn in. What's up?
You all right?
Of course, why?
Well, Carolyn's told me about this ghostly visitor of yours. Look here, you haven't seen him tonight, have you?
No. Forget it, Tom. I'll make out. Don't bother about me. Go on to bed.
All right, cheerio, old pal. Just wanted to make sure the goblins hadn't got you. Good night. And then, the very next morning as I was shaving, my door was flung open and in burst Charles.
Inglesby, this is now past a joke. Where are my trousers?
Good grief, Charles. What's the idea of yelling at me? You've made me cut my chin.
Oh, confound your stupid chin. Another pair of trousers are gone again.
Oh, heavens, this is too good. Don't tell me the ghost got the regimentals, too.
Laugh if you will. They're gone. Now, I've looked everywhere. What have you done with my clothes?
I? Charles, I'm as mystified as you are.
In all seriousness, Tom, aren't you putting over one of your famous hoaxes?
I swear to you I've no hand in this skullduggery.
Well, then your ancestor's ghost has, and I've had all I can stand. Now, you'll simply have to lend me a pair of your trousers.
Well, take all my trousers. Get out of here. You're in no mood to talk sense.
All right, as you so politely put it, I'll get out. And in your trousers. In spite of the ties that hold me here, I'm leaving Captain today.
Seaforth, wait a moment. Now I was really afraid that Charles' mind was unhinged. I dressed hurriedly and rushed downstairs. Hearing noises in the library, I went quietly to the door and listened.
Darling, please don't leave. For my sake, please.
Carolyn, I can't stay, I tell you. As surely as I love you, that spectral anatomy came to my room last night, grinned in my face, and again walked off with my trousers.
Obviously, Charles, it's an insane trick.
If it is a trick.
What do you mean?
I've decided it all has to do with the ownership of Tapton.
What?
Yes. As you and Tom both said, I am your cousin. I have been in foreign lands. But I'm not claiming Tapton. One of you is trying by inhuman means to frighten me to death. Poison. Yes, mental poison. But you won't get away with it. You won't.
Stop, darling, stop. How can you believe such things? Oh, Tom, I'm so glad you were listening. Talk to him, please.
Charles, old man, you're so wrong. Why, you're my oldest friend, and Carolyn loves you. You know that. Now, come on. Forget these black thoughts. Go for a walk and let the sun and the wind drive this fog from your mind.
Please, Charles, don't talk any more about leaving. Let's fight this thing out together.
I don't know what's got into me. Very well, Carolyn. I'll stay.
That's fine.
Don't worry, Carolyn, dear. I'll try to be a model guest.
See you at lunch then, darling. Oh, Tom, isn't it awful? Whatever will we do? I do love him so.
I was mad clear through and determined to scotch this ghost business once and for all. I knew that the oak room had a secret cupboard in the paneling, so that night I decided I must hide there and spy on Charles. I slipped away from my guests and, tiptoeing through the dark gloom of the oak room, I groped my way into the closet. Suddenly, my hands touched soft human flesh. Good Lord. Carolyn.
Tom, you scared me so.
Oh, we had the same idea, huh?
Yes, to protect Charles.
Well, of course. But we may have a long wait, sis.
I won't mind.
Shh, yes.
I think I hear him coming. Oh, Tom, I'm so scared.
Quiet. Chin up, old girl. Charles got himself ready for bed, started to take off his trousers, then suddenly put them on again and flung himself into bed. He had left the night lamp on, which was lucky, as thus we could see more easily. After waiting for what seemed hours, Carolyn suddenly clutched my arm.
Look, he's sitting up. Shall we speak?
No, not yet. He's turning this way. Good Lord, he's asleep.
Yes. His eyes are wide open, but they stare senselessly, like dead eyes.
He's out of bed. Huh? What did you see looking for?
He's got a torch. Why, he's looking at himself in the mirror. Tom, he's going to the secret staircase. He's opening the door.
Come along, we've got to follow him. Not too closely. Hurry, please. We hurried after him down the stairs and out to the postern gate. We saw him enter the glen, and then as we came closer, there was Charles with a spade, digging.
Whatever is he doing?
Digging a large hole. The earth is soft. He's been digging here before. Look, he's removing his trousers and burying them.
to be shocked out of their trance. I'll wake him as he turns towards us. Well, here he's coming now. Now!
Tom, what have you done? You've killed him.
But I hadn't killed him, though I had hit him hard, and then I realized. We called for help and carried him to the Great Hall. He was still unconscious when Dr. Austin arrived. We waited anxiously during his examination. Finally, the doctor came towards us.
Well, Tom, my young lieutenant is coming around nicely.
Oh, what a relief.
Oh, Doctor, is he going to be all right?
Of course, my dear.
Then it was shell shock, Doctor?
Not exactly. I think that head wound and the fever combined to give his subconscious overactive control of his mind.
And when I hit him?
Best thing you could have done. You put that subconscious in its place. I think it's safe to say that he won't sleepwalk anymore.
Look at Charles. He's sitting up.
What? Where? What? Why are you all staring? Why am I here? Oh, my jaw.
Don't try to speak, dear. You're all right now.
Well, I should say I was. Why, I feel as if a load had been lifted from my heart. Oh, I remember my trousers.
Yes, Charles. You've been busy burying trousers.
In neat layers, riding breeches, shorts, and even those beautiful regimentals.
Then I've been haunting myself.
Yes, dearest. You are the spectre of Tafton.
Oh, my love. Can you ever bring yourself to marry a spectre?
Darling, I love ghosts.
Oh, I begin to catch on. Wedding bells are in the offing.
Yes, and with my blessing. But, Charles, if ever again you feel inclined to jump out of bed and ramble out of doors, there's one thing I'd like to suggest.
What's that, old boy?
I recommend that Carolyn wear the trousers.
From the time-worn pages of the past, we have heard the immortal tale, The Spectre of Tappington. Bellkeeper, toll the bell.
From the time-worn pages of the past, we have heard another immortal tale in The Weird Circle. Bellkeeper, toll the bell. Be here in this lonely cave by the restless sea once again next time for another immortal tale in The Weird Circle.
Our next broadcast was one of the premier drama programs of the golden age of radio and was subtitled Radio's Outstanding Theater of Thrills and focused on suspense thriller-type scripts, usually featuring leading Hollywood actors of the era. Approximately 945 episodes were broadcast during its long run, and more than 900 still exist. The protagonist was usually a normal person, suddenly dropped into a threatening or bizarre situation. Solutions were withheld until the last possible second, and evildoers were usually punished by the end. We present to you Suspense on HOJO Radio.
Suspense. Tonight, Columbia brings you as guest star Hollywood's genial character actor, Stuart Irwin. The story is by the author of The Thin Man and the Maltese Falcon, Dashiell Hammett, one of America's acknowledged masters of the art of suspense. Suspense is compounded of mystery and intrigue and dangerous adventure. In this series are stories calculated to intrigue you, to stir your nerves, to offer you a precarious situation, and then withhold the solution until the last possible moment. Tonight, for instance, Stuart Irwin plays for us a pleasant, easygoing assistant chief of police in a small town who, to everyone's surprise, was instrumental in solving a murder. We trust that with this tale we shall keep you in suspense.
For suspense tonight, CBS presents Stuart Irwin in Two Sharp Knives by Dashiell Hammett.
Shortly after 2 a.m., a poker game had just broken up at Ben Camley's, the doctor coroner of Deerwood City. Scott Henderson, Deerwood's chief of police, and Wally Shane, his assistant, were standing outside.
Where are we heading for, Scott?
Let's walk across the street, Wally. Railroad station.
Gee, aren't you afraid of the excitement, Chief? Don't you think that watching the 211 come in is apt to be too much for your blood pressure?
Well, if it is, Wally, you can always carry on. You've been a pretty good imitation of an assistant to me for some time now.
Yeah?
Yeah. If anything happens to me, you'd be the chief. Don't worry. It won't be any harder for you to fool the public as chief. Hi, Elmer.
Howdy, Scott. Hello, Wally. Kind of late for you boys to be around, ain't it?
No, I don't know. We sort of figured we'd put the town to bed tonight. How's the 211? On time?
Right on the nose. She ought to be blowing for the bend in just about 3 seconds now. Yep. What'd I tell you? It's her now. You expecting anyone on her, Scott?
No, Elmer, I'm not expecting anyone. Wally and I just thought we'd come over and watch you come in, that's all.
You know, Elmer, you never can tell who might get off, though. Dick Turpin, Henry Morgan, Jesse James, Jack the Ripper, or 6 officers of Murder Incorporated, or even your Aunt Gussie.
I guess you're right, Wally. Well, here she be. Pardon me, gents, but I gotta be rolling the wagon out to the baggage car. Hi, Elmer. How's it going? Well, can't complain, Cap. Well, maybe you can't, Elmer, but I sure can if you hold us up with that freight there. You got much more? Nope, this is the last piece now. There you are, Cap. All done. Okay. See you tomorrow, Elmer.
Hey, Scott, do you see what I see?
I mean, do I see the man who just got off that train? The answer's yes.
Well, he's a ringer for the guy we got a picture of.
That is the guy.
Well, then, what do we do now?
We take him, Wally. My car's at the corner of the alley.
But, Scott...
We'll tail him up the street.
Okay, Scott. There he goes now, over toward the taxi stand.
Come on, let's follow him. Hello, Furman.
Huh? Why, I don't believe
You're Lester Furman, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Philadelphia?
Yes?
I'm Scott Anderson, Chief of Police.
What? Chief of... What's happened to her?
Happened to who?
Oh, no, you don't.
No?
Let me go.
Oh, no.
You think you can pull that sort of stuff with me? You're
Scott,
very
let me
much
get a
mistaken.
crack at that mug.
Oh, no. Wait a minute.
No.
Wait a minute,
Hold it,
gentlemen.
Wally. Well, Furman?
Well, I am sorry. For a moment there, I thought you weren't really a policeman.
Thanks. Nice to know I look almost human.
Yes, it was silly of me. I'm sorry.
Well, let's get going now before anything else happens. Okay, Furman, get in the car. I'll drive, Scott.
In you go.
Are you taking me to police headquarters?
That's right.
What for?
Philadelphia?
I don't think I understand.
You understand that you're wanted in Philadelphia for murder, don't you?
Murder? Why, that's ridiculous. Who told you that?
Well, it's a cinch he didn't make it up.
But wait, there must be...
Take it easy now. Just wait till we get down to headquarters. And I'll show you what I mean.
Now then, here's the circular on Lester Furman. It was sent out by the Trans-America Detective Agency in Philadelphia. Take a look at it.
Oh, yeah. $1,500 reward for the arrest and conviction of Lester Furman, alias Lloyd Fields, alias J.D. Carpenter, for the murder of Paul Frank Dunlap in Philadelphia on December 8th, 1942.
Well?
It's a lie.
You're Furman, aren't you?
Oh, yes, but...
That's your picture on the circular, isn't it?
Oh, yes, but I...
Well, Scott, I see you and Wally got Furman, huh?
Oh, hello, George.
You lucky stiffs. Now you two split $1.50 reward. I never seen nothing like it. You know, if it ain't vacations in New York at the city's expense, it's reward dough.
Judge, someday, if you don't remember you're the jailer around here, not the DA, you're going to be wearing your teeth on the outside of your lips, and I'll be the guys who arrange them that way. Savvy?
Just because you caught a guy who's hot in Philadelphia.
It's a lie. It's a frame-up. You can't prove anything. There's nothing to prove. I never killed anybody. I won't be framed.
Take it
I won't
easy,
be framed.
Furman. Take it easy. You're wasting your breath on us. Save it for the Philadelphia police. We're just holding you for them.
But it's not the police. It's the Trans-America
We
detective.
turn you over to the Philadelphia police.
Mr. Anderson, Well, then there's nothing I can do now.
There's nothing any of us can do till morning. We'll have to search you now, then we won't bother you anymore till they come for you.
But
Wally, you look through his bag. I'll see what he's got in his pockets. Okay, Scott. Well, all he's got on him are some business cards, a few letters, $160, a book of checks in the Philadelphia bank, and a few odds and ends. What's with the bag, Wally?
Not much. A couple of changes of clothes, some toilet articles, and... Oh, here's a .38. Loaded. Pretty little thing, isn't it?
Okay, put those things in what I got in the vault. All right, George. You can take Furman now and lock him up.
This is the most ridiculous
Come
thing
on, darling, come on. We ain't had nobody in our little hoosegow for 3 days running. Hey, yeah? You'll have it all to yourself. Just like a suite at the Ritz.
But
Go on, in you go.
I tell you, you're making a mistake. I demand to be allowed to get in touch with my lawyer.
Hey, how about you boys cutting me in on a little of that blood money, huh?
Oh, sure, George, sure. I'll forget all about that 2.5 you've been owing me for 3 months.
Make Furman as comfortable as you can, George. Take good care of him.
He's valuable, huh? Yeah, now, if it was some bum that didn't mean a nickel to you...
George, any day now, I'm going to forget that your uncle is county chairman and throw you back in the gutter just to see how high you'll bounce. Remember that.
Oh, Scott, I didn't mean nothing.
That's all, George. Never mind the rest. I'm going home now. If anything's urgent, I can reach there. But get this. I don't want to be disturbed. Unless it is urgent.
Hello. Scott, this is Wally.
Yeah, Wally, what time is it?
It's 5 after 6 in the morning, and you'd better come right down, Scott. That fella Furman's hung himself.
What? Furman hung himself?
Yep, by his belt from a window bar. Deader than a mackerel.
I'll be right in, Wally. Phone Doc Camsley and tell him I'll pick him up on my way down.
No doctor's going to do Furman any good, Scott.
Well, it won't hurt to have him looked at. You'd better phone the Chronicle court at Douglasville, too, and file a routine report.
Already did that. And what's more, hold on to your seat. The DA's on his way over, in person.
The DA?
Yeah.
I'll be there before you hang up, Wally.
Come on in, Chief. Ted Carroll, the DA's here, and he's plenty hot under the collar.
What's he burning about?
Oh, he's just mad. Running up quite a phone bill on us, too. Been calling Philadelphia every couple of minutes since he got here. What kept you so long?
I couldn't get the car started. Well, let's go in and see the old buzzard. Oh, Ted?
Listen, Scott, what is all this?
Oh, what?
There's some funny business going on here.
What's funny about it? Man hangs himself. Just another case of suicide.
Sure, it was suicide. But I just telephoned Transamerica. Dug a guy out of bed there. And he said they'd never sent out circulars on Furman. Didn't know about any murder he was wanted for. All they could tell me about him was he used to be a client of theirs.
You don't know what to say, Ted.
I don't either. Oh, a fine chief of police you are. What on earth kept you so long?
Car store. Came as quick as I could. Ain't you so crabby, Ted?
Nothing. I guess it's just the district attorney and...
Ah, now, come, gentlemen. Nobody'd know you two are staunch admirers of each other.
Okay, Wally. Tell me, what do you make of it?
Well, there's plenty wrong, Scott. First, that Transamerica thing. They never sent out circulars about Furman. And now, get this. I talked to the Philly police just before you came in. There wasn't even any Paul Frank Dunlap murdered.
There wasn't?
No. What did you get out of Furman before you let him hang himself?
But he was innocent.
Didn't you grill him? Didn't you find out what he was doing in town? Wally, didn't you?
What for? He admitted he was Furman. The description fitted him. The photograph was him. The Transamerica Detective Agency's supposed to be on the level, ain't it? Philadelphia wanted Furman. We didn't. But
Why, sure, Ted. If I'd have known he was going to hang himself. Yeah, but then if your aunt wore pants, he'd be your uncle. You said Furman had been a client of Transamerica. They tell you what the job they did for him was?
His wife left him a couple of years ago, and he had them hunting for her for 5 or 6 months. But they never found her. They're sending a man up here tonight to look things over.
Yeah, huh?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going out and grab a quick bite. But I might as well tell you, Scott, there's going to be trouble over this.
I know that, Ted. There usually is when somebody dies in a jail cell.
Well, so what's become of that 1,500 fish now, huh, Scott?
What happened there last night, George?
Nothing. Furman hung himself.
Did you find him?
Uh-huh. Wally took a look in here to see how things was before he went off duty, and he found him.
You're asleep, I suppose.
Well, I was catching a nap, I guess, but everybody does that sometimes, Scott. Even Wally sometimes when he comes in off his beat between rounds. Yeah, but I always wake up when the phone rings or anything.
Oh, sure.
Well, suppose I had been awake. Can't hear a guy hanging himself, can you?
Did Doc Camsley say how long Furman had been dead?
He done it about 5 o'clock, he said he guessed. Oh, you want to look at the remains, Scott? They're over at Fritz's undertaking parlor.
Not now.
Hey, and speaking of Furman, what are you going to tell the guys from Transamerica when they show up here tonight?
Come in.
Oh, they told me I'd find you here. You're Chief Anderson, aren't you?
Yes, that's right.
I'm Carl Riesing, Assistant Manager of the Transamerica Detective Agency in Philadelphia. This is Mr. Wheelock, who was Lester Furman's personal attorney.
Glad to know you, Mr. Riesing. How do you do, Mr. Wheelock?
How do you do?
I know you gentlemen are already in possession of most of the details concerning Mr. Furman from the time he arrived in Deerwood until the time of his death. But perhaps you don't know that the police of most towns in our corner of the state have also received copies of this same reward circular. Take a look at it.
Oh. I must say this circular is an excellent forgery.
You're sure it's a forgery, Mr. Riesing?
Oh, yes, there's no doubt about it. But it's an excellent forgery.
Tell me, Mr. Wheelock, was Mr. Furman a native Philadelphian?
Oh, my, yes. He was a well-known, respectable, and prosperous citizen of Philadelphia.
Married, I believe?
In 1934, he married a 22-year-old girl named Ethel Bryan, daughter of a Philadelphia family.
And the Furmans had a child? Isn't that right, Mr. Wheelock?
Yes, born in 1936, but the child lived only a few months. Mr. Furman's wife disappeared after the child's death.
What year was it that she disappeared?
Mr. Riesing should remember that. His agency worked on the matter.
Oh, I remember it well. Mrs. Furman disappeared in 1937. We never heard anything of her again, although Furman spent a lot of money trying to locate her.
What did she look like, Mr. Riesing?
In just a moment. I have a picture of her right here in my briefcase. Here it is. Quite pretty, isn't she?
If you care for that type.
I see what you mean, Mr. Wheelock. Well, she's attractive as that. Judging by this photo, I'd say that she was a small-featured, pretty blonde, with a weak mouth and large, somewhat staring eyes.
Oh, that's an accurate enough description, all right.
If you don't mind, I'd like to have a copy made of that photograph, Mr. Riesing.
Oh, you can keep that one if you like. It's one that we had made up at Transamerica. Her description's on the back.
Thanks. Did Furman ever divorce her?
No, sir. He was a lot in love with her, and he seemed to think that the child's dying made her a little screwy so that she didn't know what she was doing. That's right, isn't it, Mr. Wheelock?
That is my belief, Mr. Riesing.
You said Furman had money, Mr. Wheelock. About how much did he have? And who gets it?
I should say his estate will amount to perhaps $500,000 left in its entirety to his wife.
Mm-hmm. That's quite a handy sum for anyone to have, I'd say. Mr. Wheelock, everything shows that somebody framed Furman into the Deerwood jail. And that frame-up drove him to suicide. But there has to be something else. A lot else.
Well, then, what are you going to do?
I'm going across the street to the undertaking parlor and have a look at Furman. I'll see you later. Hello, Doc.
Hi, Scott. I figured you'd come over here to the undertaker's pretty soon.
What's in your mind, Doc?
Let's get out of this crowd. I want to tell you something.
I just got rid of 2 guys in my office. Let's go back there.
Suits me. 2 of those bruises showed, Scott.
What bruises?
Furman. Well, up under the hair, there were 2 bruises.
Why didn't you tell me?
I'm telling you now, Scott. You weren't here when I made my examination. This is the first time I've seen you since then.
Why didn't you spill the stuff about Furman's bruises when you were testifying at the inquest, Ben?
I'm a friend of yours. Do I want to put you on a spot where people can say you drove this champ to suicide by third-degreeing him too rough?
Ah, you're nuts. How bad was Furman's head?
Well, Scott, that didn't kill him, if that's what you mean. There's nothing the matter with his skull. Just a couple of bruises nobody would notice, and unless they parted the hair. I thought you ought to know, though.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. Yes, who is it?
This is Fritz, the undertaker. Listen, Scott, there's a couple of ladies over here that want to take a look at Furman. Is it all right?
Who are they?
I don't know them. Strangers.
What do they want to see him for?
I don't know. Wait a minute.
Can't I please see him?
Why do you want to see him?
Well, I'm his wife.
Furman's wife?
Yes.
Oh, certainly. I'll be right over. So long, Ben. I've got to go back to the undertaker's.
So long, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
What do you want, Wally?
I want to talk to you a minute. Over here where we won't be seen.
Okay, what is it?
A couple of dames came into Fritz's undertaking place just as I was leaving. One of them's Hotshot Randall, a babe with a record as long as your arm. She's one of that mob you had me working on in New York last summer.
Does she know you?
Sure, but not by my right name. She thinks I'm a Detroit rum runner.
I mean, did she recognize you just now?
I don't think she saw me. Anyway, she didn't give me a tumble.
You don't know the other one?
No, she's a blonde, kind of pretty.
Okay, Wally. Stick around a while, but stay out of sight. Maybe I'll be bringing these dolls back with me.
Whatever you say, Chief.
Oh, there you are, Scott. I wondered when you were coming. This is Mrs. Furman, and this is Mrs. Crowder.
How do you do?
Hiya, Chief.
They just saw the body.
Mrs. Crowder, I thought your name was Randall.
What do you care, Chief? I'm not hurting your town any.
Don't call me Chief. You city slickers, I'm the town whittler.
Thank you for letting me see him.
It's all right, Mrs. Furman. But I'll have to ask you and your friend some questions. So if you'll just come across the street to headquarters, we'll get on with the routine. Before I ask any questions, I want to tell you something. Mrs. Furman, your husband didn't commit suicide. He was murdered.
Murdered? Ah, Chief, we got alibis. We were in New York, and we can prove it.
And you're likely to get a chance to. What brought you down here, anyway?
Murdered? Well, who's got a better right to come down here? She was still his wife, wasn't she? She's got a right to look out for her own interests, hasn't she?
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of something. Excuse me a second. I've got to make a phone call in the next room.
Officer Hamill speaking.
This is Scott.
Yes?
Is Wally around?
No, he's not here. He said you told him to keep out of sight. I'll find him for you, though.
Right. Tell Wally I want him to go to New York tonight. Send Mason home to get some sleep. He'll have to take over Wally's night trick.
Oh.
Mr. Anderson, do you think I had anything to do with his death?
I don't know, Mrs. Furman. I know he was killed. I also know he left you something like $500,000.
Wow. Dollars?
Dollars.
All right, Chief. let's stop clowning. The kid here didn't have a thing to do with whatever you think happened.
No?
No. We read about Lester Furman committing suicide in yesterday morning's paper, and about there being something funny about it. And I persuaded her she ought to come down to
Mr.
Deerwood.
Anderson, I wouldn't have done anything to hurt Lester. I left him because I wanted to leave him. I wouldn't have done anything to hurt him for money or anything else. Had I wanted money from him, I would only have had to ask him for it.
That's the truth, Chief. For years I've been telling Ethel she was a chump not to tap him. But she never would.
I wouldn't have hurt him.
Why'd you leave him then?
Oh, I don't know how to say it. The way we lived wasn't the way I wanted to live. I wanted... Oh, I don't know what. Anyway, after the baby died, I couldn't stand it anymore.
Excuse me. Hello? Oh, yeah, Hammer? You gave Wally the message? Yes, I want him to go to New York tonight. Okay, where is he? Home? He is home, huh? Okay, thanks. This is, Furman. This circular that got your husband in the jail. Did you ever see that picture before?
No. Why, that can't be. It's a snapshot I have. It's an enlargement of it.
Who else has one?
Nobody that I know of. I don't think anyone else could have one.
You still got yours?
Yes. Don't remember whether I've seen it recently. It's with some old papers and things. But I must have it.
Well, Mrs. Furman, it's stuff like that that's got to be checked up. Neither of us can dodge it. Now, there's two ways we can play it.
Yes?
Mrs. Furman, I can hold you here on suspicion until I've had time to investigate things. Or I can send one of my men with you to check up in New York.
Yes?
I'm willing to do that if you'll speed things up by helping them all you can. If you'll promise you won't try any tricks.
I promise. I'm as anxious as
All
you
right,
are.
all right. How'd you come down?
We drove down. We got a great big car. That's my car, see? That big green job across the street.
Yeah. And my man can ride back with you, but no funny business.
Oh, don't worry, Chief.
Come on. We're going to see Wally Shane, the man who's going to drive to New York with you. Wally?
Who is it?
Scott, Wally.
Come in.
Ladies first.
Harry.
Ethel.
No, you don't. No use reaching with that gun, Wally. Already got you covered.
I guess you win, Scott.
Yeah, I guess I do. Come along back to headquarters with me like a good little boy. Wally, you're under arrest for murder.
I knew it was all up, Scott, the minute I saw those two dames going into Fritz's. Then when I was ducking out of sight, I ran into you, and I was afraid you'd take me over there with you, so I had to tell you one of them knew me. Figured you'd want to keep me under cover for a little while anyhow, long enough for me to get out of town.
Why didn't you get out, Wally?
Well, I dropped in home to pick up a couple of things before I scram, and that phone call of Hamill's catches me, and I fall for it. You see, Scott, I figured you're not on to me yet and are going to send me back to New York to see what dope I can get out of the dames. Well, you fooled me, brother.
I thought you'd fall for that.
Then you didn't just stumble into all this accidentally, did you?
No, I didn't, Wally. I figured Furman had to be murdered by a copper. The no reward circular is well enough to make a good job of forging one. Incidentally, who printed that Furman circular for you, Wally?
I'm not dragging anyone in with me. It was only a poor mug that needed dough.
Okay, Wally. You see, I knew only a copper would be sure enough of the routine to know how things would be handled. Only one of my coppers would be able to walk into Furman's cell, bang him across the head, and string him up on the... Those bruises showed, you know, Wally.
They did? I guess I should have wrapped 2 towels around that blackjack. Oh, gee, Scott. I seem to have slipped up on a lot of things.
So that narrows it down to my coppers and... Well, you told me you knew the Randall woman. There it was. Only I figured you were working with him. What got you like this, Wally?
Same thing that gets most saps into jams, a yen for easy dough. I was in New York, see, Scott, working that Dutton job for you, palling around with big-shot racketeers, passing for one of them, and...
Yes?
Well, I got to figuring that my work takes more brains than theirs, and they're taking in big money, and I'm working for coffee and cakes. That kind of stuff gets you, Scott. Anyway, it got me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I ran into this Ethel Furman, and she goes for me like a house afire. I liked her, too, see, so that's dandy. But one night she tells me about how much dough her husband's got and how he feels about her, and I get to thinking...
Thinking what?
I think she's nuts enough about me to marry me. So I got to thinking, suppose he died and left her his role.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So I run down to Philly a couple of afternoons and look Furman up, and everything looks fine. I took my time working out the details, meanwhile writing to her through a fellow in Detroit.
Go on. Finish for me.
Well, I decided to do it. I sent those circulars out to a lot of places, not wanting to point too much to this one. And then when I was ready, I phoned Furman, telling him to come to Deerwood Hotel that night. And sometime before the next night, he'd hear from his wife, Ethel. I knew he'd fall for any trap that was baited with her. Only I guess I'm not as sharp as I thought I was, Scott.
Maybe you are, Wally. Maybe you are. That doesn't always help. Old man Camsley, Ben's father, used to have a saying, to a sharp knife comes a tough steak. Well, sorry you did it, Wally. I always liked you.
I know you did, Scott. I was counting on that.
So ends Dashiell Hammett's Two Sharp Knives, starring Stuart Irwin. Tonight's story of suspense. Columbia presents these tales of mystery and intrigue and dangerous adventure for your relaxation and enjoyment. Next week, suspense will not be heard because of a special holiday broadcast. Columbia's review of the events of the year, 12 crowded months, which has been scheduled. On the following Tuesday, January 5th, there'll be another in this series. Same hour, 9:30 Eastern Wartime. William Spear, the producer, John Dietz, the director, and Bernard Herrmann, the composer-conductor, are collaborators on Suspense.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
You're listening to HOJO Radio. More classic old-time radio coming your way next.
Just about the gayest couple in detective fiction are Nora and Nick Charles. Nick Charles is really the detective, but Nora makes a beautiful and able assistant. You'll hear all about the Charles family when you listen to The Adventures of the Thin Man every Friday beginning January 8th over this station at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Wartime. And for the Pacific Time Zone at 9:30 p.m. Pacific Wartime.
Suspense. Tonight, Columbia brings you as guest stars two deaf players from the movie lots of Hollywood, the stages of Broadway, Miss Alessa Landy and Mr. George Coulouris. They are here to spend with us a half hour of suspense. Suspense is compounded of mystery and suspicion and dangerous adventure. In this series are stories calculated to intrigue you, to stir your nerves, to offer you a precarious situation and then withhold the solution until the last possible moment. Tonight, for instance, Miss Landy plays for us an agreeable young lady who is on the trail of some hot money. And Mr. Coulouris plays for us A disagreeable young man who may or may not know more about the money than he says. We trust that with this tale we shall keep you in suspense.
For Suspense tonight, CBS presents Alyssa Landy and George Coulouris in Nothing Up My Sleeve by John Dixon Carr.
X-ray, read all about it. Jock Morgan caught. X-ray, read all about it. Jock Morgan caught.
It's New Year's Eve, remember? Times Square is celebrating. The fiery lights flash no longer, but the crowds are still the same. Thronging, jostling, singing, drowning out a voice at the street corner when it says,
Fatal gun battle at Jamaica. Read all about it. Fatal gun battle at Jamaica. Read all about it.
But would that cry perhaps reach as far as a large and sedate country house some 20 miles from New York? Out there, the earth is sealed up with snow. The white pillars of the house rise up high and ghostly against it, showing no outward lights. A lonely house, this mansion in Fir Woods.
Just the place for a murder, I've always said.
Wouldn't surprise me either. These Rouse are a funny lot.
And alone in that house tonight, apparently alone, is a man practicing shots in a billiard room, a long and paneled room at the back of the house. Now, look at Mr. Derek Ross, as tall and lean and well-tailored as ever. Many people don't like him. He's a little too supercilious, a little too sure of himself, too suggestive of the lifted lip and the glazed eye. There he stands in the billiard room, under the snow-covered skylight, leaning over the green cloth under brilliant lights when...
Huh? Just a moment, please. Good shot. Yes, come in.
Excuse me, Mr. Rouse.
Oh, not at all. Hey, but aren't you Miss...
I'm Dorothy Dale, your aunt's social secretary. Surely you remember that.
Oh, of course. Forgive me for forgetting your name. You surprised me, Dorothy.
Yes, I thought I surprised you a little.
No, I mean you surprised me by being in the house at all.
Why?
Why? Well, this is New Year's Eve. Shouldn't you be out getting drunk and blowing cardboard horns and doing the other fantastic things that people do?
I haven't much heart for that tonight.
Please, don't become emotional, Dorothy. I detest emotion. If you're shivering, go over by the radiator.
Mr. Ross, may I ask you a question?
Of course.
Did you ever feel sick at heart?
Huh?
Physically sick, I mean, so that your insides turned over and you couldn't get your breath and... Did you?
No, I can't say I did. May I move you aside for just a moment? Thank you. Not bad.
Can't you guess why I came here to see you tonight?
No.
Because I'm in terrible trouble, Mr. Ross. Desperate trouble. And I think you can help me.
I can help you? How?
For one thing, you're making quite a name for yourself as a lawyer.
Yes, that's what others have told me.
For another thing, do you know a man named Shark Morgan?
Shark Morgan. Shark, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
Shark Morgan. No, I'm sure I've never heard that name before.
You ought to know him. He's a little dark-faced man with most of his upper lip cut away in a knife fight so that you can see all his teeth. That's why they call him Shark.
Oh, he sounds like an unpleasant-looking person.
He is, or was, a ghastly-looking person. You don't know him? He's not a client of yours?
No.
I don't believe you.
Just a moment, Miss Dorothy Dale. I must put down this cue and say a few words myself.
Please do.
I don't want to be offensive to you, but it seems to me that for a paid employee of my aunt, practically a servant, you're taking a great deal on yourself.
If you're trying to hurt me that way, you're succeeding. But go ahead.
You come to me at 11 o'clock at night. You come rushing into this billiard room. Oh, observe, I call it a billiard room, though this is actually a pool table. Just as everything in life gets its wrong name.
I entirely agree.
Yes, but you agree about what?
That everything gets its wrong name. Honest men are called thieves, and thieves are called honest men.
Would you mind explaining that remark, please?
I can explain it very easily. I'm engaged to be married to Jerry Winton.
Well?
Don't say you don't know who Jerry Winton is. He was in college with you.
I played on our extremely second-rate baseball team with him, yes.
You never liked him, did you?
Liked him? I'm afraid I never noticed him.
Jerry Winton works at City and Provincial Bank on 51st Street. He's a teller there. Does that mean anything to you?
No. You see, it's not my bank.
I was at the City and Provincial Bank yesterday afternoon. Yesterday afternoon, Mr. Rolfe, just before closing time. It was a dark day and the lights were on. There weren't many people in that big marble hall. I went up to Jerry's window, if that's what you call it. Can you cash a check for $1 million?
Hello, Dolly.
Hello, Jerry. You glad to see me?
I am not pleased to see you here, Dolly. I'm never pleased to see you here.
And why not?
Because I can't make love to you. Can you imagine anybody making love in a bank?
Oh, we might sneak into the president's office.
As a matter of fact, I've dreamed of holding a party in there. Thought it'll never happen, unless I'm fired, which is very likely.
Jerry, sometimes I wish you weren't so easygoing.
I'm not easygoing with the bank's money, Dolly. Otherwise, I'd be shoving it out to you through the window in double handfuls like this.
Jerry, for heaven's sake, no.
Then state your business, madam. The convict in the next cage is watching us already.
I want to cash a check. Here it is. $20. That is, if my account can stand it.
Yes, I think we can manage that. How will you have it?
Oh, it doesn't matter anyway. Jerry.
What's wrong?
Look over there.
Where?
Over there by that marble table with the pens and ink on it. The little man with no upper lip to his mouth and all his teeth showing.
Ugly-looking devil I've missed.
He's carrying something like a violin case.
Hold on. I've seen that fellow someplace before.
Of course you have. Don't you remember where? It was out at Mr. Rolfe's house in the country when you came to visit me last Sunday. The man with the teeth and 5 other men were coming out on the porch as we were going in.
Wait a minute, Dolly. That's not all.
What is it?
There's some very funny-looking customers in this bank right now.
Where?
At Mr. Wallace's window. At Mr. Robinson's window. And up by the guard at the front door.
They don't seem to make any sound. As though they all wore rubber-soled shoes. Jerry, something's going to happen.
I know it is. Unless I can get off this stool and...
That was just to call your attention, folks. Just to call your attention. Now, just stand where you are, all of you, and nobody will get hurt.
Darling, I'm scared. Well, what shall I do?
Just stand still.
I don't dare turn around. The man with the...
Yes, he's got the machine.
We don't want any funny business about alarm bells, see? One of the boys is already gone behind to take up the collection. Now, just stay where you are. That's all you got to do.
You can't get away with this.
Oh, look, boys, here's a guy at the front with a nice mahogany desk and a plate with his name on it who says we can't get away with it. That's Sharp, huh?
Don't do it, Sharp. That wasn't in our orders.
So we can't get away with it.
Oh, he's crazy.
I hear somebody else talking.
Jerry!
Thought I had somebody over there. Oh, it's you, kid.
Move to one side of the window, Dolly. Move to one side of the window.
Don't worry, kid. I ain't gonna hurt you.
No?
Not a bit of it. Thanks for helping us. You'll get your cut later.
What do you mean, my cut?
That's what I said. You'll get your share when we divvy up.
But I don't know anything about this robbery.
All right, kid. We'll take care of you.
I tell you, I don't know anything about this robbery.
Jerry!
$6 in the end pocket. Got it.
Are you listening, Mr. Rolfe?
This Shark Morgan must have been quite a fool. I grant you that.
He was a fool. He must have been crazy. But they've held Jerry at police headquarters just the same.
Well, that's very unfortunate if he's innocent.
You know he's innocent.
I'm afraid I don't know anything about it.
Don't you even know what happened today? Haven't you read the newspaper?
No.
The police trapped that whole gang in a Long Island farmhouse. There was a gunfight.
Oh, is that so? Oh, no casualties, I hope.
You hope?
I must tell you again, Dorothy, don't be emotional. I detest emotion.
The whole gang were killed, every last one of them, including Sharp Morgan. So there's nobody to talk, nobody to tell. But,
as you were saying?
They didn't find the money.
What money?
The stolen money. $88,000 taken from that bank, and yet the police can't find a cent of it. Shall I tell you why, Mr. Rolfe? Because it was passed on to somebody else for safekeeping.
Oh, passed on to somebody else.
That's what I said.
Well, perhaps your friend Jerry Winton could tell us where it is.
That's what the police think. Oh, can you imagine what he's going through tonight?
Oh, it's not a pleasant way to spend New Year's Eve, I admit. Excuse me. But, after all, the late Shark Morgan did accuse Winton. Now, if he isn't guilty, why should Morgan accuse him?
Meanness.
I don't think I understand.
Meanness. The sort of meanness that some people call a sense of humor. Morgan saw Jerry in this house.
Oh, be careful, young lady. That's an actionable statement.
I've already made it to the police, thanks.
Oh, and did they believe you?
No.
They're a very intelligent crowd down at Center Street. And after all, your story isn't very credible.
Why not?
Well, Shark Morgan sees your friend Winton. Sees him for perhaps 10 seconds coming out of this house, and then accuses him of complicity in a bank robbery. Now, is that very likely?
Yes, very likely. If somebody put him up to it.
Again, I don't understand.
Somebody deliberately told Morgan to accuse Jerry and get him into as much trouble as possible. Tell me, Mr. Rolfe, why do you dislike Jerry so much?
Now that you mention that fellow, I can recall who he is.
Thanks for condescending to.
Yes, indeed. Why, he was the man in our class voted most likely to succeed. Now, let's see. Where did you say he is tonight?
He's just where you put him.
You're trying my patience to the very limit, young woman.
And out in a Long Island farmhouse, there are 5 bodies full of bullet holes. 5 men who'll never speak again. And somewhere else, maybe not very far from here, is the man who engineered the whole robbery. Planned it and staged it and got his accomplices killed.
My goodness, he must have supernatural powers.
No witnesses, nobody to testify. Oh, if I could only find the money.
$88,000, I think you said.
If I could only find the money and prove who had done it and prove Jerry innocent and just for 1 second get past that devilish smug mask of yours that's driving me.
Anything wrong, Dorothy?
No. No, nothing at all.
You've been following me round and round this table. Have you been looking at something?
Only admiring your billiard room, that's all.
Oh, you haven't been looking at the suitcase, for instance?
Oh, well, a suitcase?
No, over on the bench under the cue rack. The suitcase that contains legal papers.
I hadn't even noticed it. Mr. Rolfe?
Yes, Dorothy?
I'm afraid I've taken up a lot of your time and not done myself any good and made something of a spectacle of myself.
Frankly, young woman, you have.
Well, if you won't help me, you won't. That's that. If you don't mind, I'd like to go now.
I suppose, my dear, I didn't choose to let you go.
But why? Why shouldn't you? What harm can I do?
Now, who was it? Was it Meredith who remarked that the last thing to be civilized by man will be woman? I think it was, yes. And, and the slanderous woman can do a great deal of harm.
But I haven't done you any harm so far.
We're all alone in this house. There's not even a servant here. Now, if I chose to get between you and the door like this...
Keep away from me.
Oh, I'm not coming near you, Dorothy. I'm merely standing between you and the door. Now, I suppose you realize that I could turn very nasty if I liked.
What are you going to do?
Do? Well, I'm going to open the door for you like this. I'm going to say, God bless you, my child, as befits a New Year's greeting. I'm going to show you out and wish you good night.
You don't mind?
Mind? Certainly not.
You've got something to hide, haven't you, Mr. Rolfe?
No. Nothing, young woman, that I can't hide. Good night.
Operator.
What number are you calling, please?
Operator, I want to get to police headquarters in New York City. No. That'll take too long. Wait. Get me the local police station. This is Mallingford 8891.
The local police station?
Yes, that's right.
The number you want is Mallingford 326. I will ring them.
Thank you. Hurry. Why is he so confident? What has he got up his sleeve?
Mallingford Police Station.
Oh, let me speak to the chief of police, please.
You're speaking to him, ma'am. Nobody else to stay up here on New Year's Eve.
Well, my name is Dale, Miss Dorothy Dale. I'm speaking from Green Acres, Mr. Derek Rolfe's house, about 2 miles up the post road. Do you know it?
Yes, I know it, but can't you talk louder? I can hardly hear you.
I don't dare talk loud. I'm speaking from a phone just outside the billiard room door.
Well, what about it?
Listen, you want to recover the city and provincial bank money, don't you?
We sure do, miss. That money's hot, but...
Well, it's here. It's in this house, in this billiard room now.
Oh, who's got it?
Derek Rolfe himself.
Look, miss, is this on the level?
I swear it's true. I've seen the money.
Rolfe's prominent people, you know.
I can't help that. There's a big suitcase completely full of money in packages fastened with the paper label of the city and provincial bank. And that's not his own bank.
Take it easy now.
The lid of the suitcase wasn't quite closed. He thought he'd be alone here tonight, and that's why he was careless.
Does he know you saw the money?
Did I see the money? I'm not quite sure.
You're not sure?
No, I could almost have sworn he knew I saw the money, but he didn't seem to care. Be careful. The billiard room door's opening.
I thought I heard someone using the telephone out here.
Excuse me, Mr. Rolfe. I only...
What's this about the door open?
Oh, these doors are rather thick, Dorothy, but I was under the impression that I heard somebody say police.
Yes. Well, yes, you did.
You weren't phoning the police by any chance, were you?
Yes, I was.
But why? Go on. Why?
As a matter of fact, I was trying to get in touch with Jerry. That's it. He's at police headquarters in New York, and I was trying to get in touch with him to see if they'd let me talk to him on New Year's Eve. You know, I thought it would cheer him up.
Look, miss, this is the Mallingford chief of police. Are you still there?
What's that? What? Mallingford?
Well, it's a New York call relayed through the local station. You don't mind?
Not at all. Please go right ahead. Oh, by the way.
What?
I don't think you'll find that money, young woman. Good night.
Listen, miss, are you still on the end of the wire, aren't you?
Yes, but I couldn't talk to you. He was here.
Who was there?
Derek Rolfe. He said I'd never find the money.
You mean he admits he's got it?
Well, no. He just smiles and smiles. He's got some trick up his sleeve. I know it.
Oh, it'll have to be a good one.
Please never mind that. Can you come over now?
Oh, all right, miss. I'll take a chance. Who else is in the house with you?
Nobody. I'm all alone with him.
What are you going to do if he tries to light out with the money?
I don't see what I can do. That's all the more reason for you to get here quickly. I swear you'll find the money in that billiard room. Only hurry.
5 minutes. 10 minutes. 15 minutes. It can seem a very long time to a waiting girl crouching in a cold and dim-lit hallway outside a closed door, hearing only the clicking of billiard balls and watching, wondering, and praying until...
Miss Dale. Miss Dale.
This way.
Miss Dale. I'm Joe Hollister, chief of police.
Yes, I recognized your voice.
The front door wasn't locked, so I just walked in.
I hoped you would. I didn't want to leave here.
Has Mr. Rolfe come out of that room since you talked to me?
No.
And according to what you claim, he's still in there with a suitcase full of money.
That's right, Mr. Hollister.
Now, look, miss, before we go any further, there's something I ought to tell you.
Well?
Well, I checked with New York about you.
And what did they say?
Yes, Miss Hollister. And what did they say about her?
Mr.
I'm
Rolfe!
rather interested in knowing that myself.
So you could hear everything through that door?
Of course I could hear everything through the door, including your conversation with our friend, the chief of police. Good evening, Mr. Hollister.
Good evening, Mr. Rolfe. This young lady says that...
I know what she says. Will you come into the billiard room, please? Both of you?
Oh.
Thank you.
Just what trick are you up to now?
Trick? You talk of tricks?
Now, just a minute now. Take it easy. What I want to know is where's this suitcase Miss Dale was talking about?
There it is.
What, you mean that empty suitcase on the bench beside you?
Empty suitcase?
Yes, that's what I said.
It wasn't empty when I left this room.
Chief, do you mind seeing for yourself?
Well, it isn't empty. It's empty now, miss.
Hollister, It will gratify me to clear this matter up here and now.
It'll gratify me, too.
I'm tired of this slanderous nonsense, and I mean to end it. This young woman told you that I had, what was it? Some $88,000 in this room only a few minutes ago.
I still say you had.
Curb your temper, please, while I ask you some straight questions. Can you do that?
You better answer him, miss.
All right, I'll try.
Did I or did I not leave the billiard room at any time?
No, you didn't.
Good. Well, there's only one door and no window. Only a skylight covered with snow. So I didn't leave that way, did I?
No, I suppose you didn't.
Therefore, unless you're lying, the money must still be in this room.
Yes.
Then where is it?
I don't know. You must have hidden it someplace.
Oh. Where?
I'm afraid Mr. Rouse right, miss.
Take a look around you. One pool table. Comes apart so you can examine it. One radio. Go on, examine that, too. One overhead light, one standing lamp, one bare bench, one rack of cues, one rack of pool balls. Now, that's everything. Now, can you tell me where I could hide enough money to fill a suitcase?
No, I can't.
It's impossible, miss. The stuff's not here.
It must be here. It's either here or else.
Or else what?
Or else it vanished.
Oh, Mr. Hollister, haven't we had quite enough of this?
Yes, I guess we have. Now, look here, Miss Dale. I like the way you talked, and I thought you were talking straight. Will you just tell me why you tried to string me along like that?
You know, I think I can tell you, Chief Hollister.
I wasn't exactly asking you, Mr. Ralph, but... Well, go ahead.
You know, perhaps, that she's engaged to a man who's mixed up in the city and provincial robbery.
He was not.
It was neither a very clever nor a very far-sighted attempt. I'm inclined to think that she'll not have a job when my aunt returns. But as I say, it was a case of any old attempt to shield Jerry Winton.
Somebody mentioned my name.
Jerry! Oh, Jerry.
Steady, I'm alive. I'm not a ghost. You needn't dive at me like
But
that.
how did you get here? How did you get away?
I was trying to tell you, miss, when our host butted in. The DA is convinced your young man had nothing to do with this.
That's right, Dolly. And I thought I'd better come out and take you back to New York with me.
I was never so glad to see anybody in my life. Put your arms around me.
I don't suppose you'd mind if I picked up this cue and went on practicing. Let's try the 8-ball all the way down the table.
Come on, Dolly. It'll be New Year's in a few minutes. There's nothing to worry about.
There is something to worry about. He's got the money, the whole $88,000. I know it. I'm sure of it. Only we can't find it. It's hidden somewhere in this room.
As I said before, haven't we had just about enough of this?
The chief of police there won't believe me, but it's true.
I've heard a lot about that money myself.
I'll bet you have, son.
For nothing but hot money, hot money, hot money, and where is it, where is it, where is it, until I thought I was going off my nut. If I could prove Derek Rolfe had anything to do with this, I'd... Dolly, what's the matter?
Mr. Hollister.
Yes, miss?
I think I know now where he's hidden the money.
Well, that was a bad shot, Mr. Ralph. You've made the white ball jump clear off the table.
Well, there are plenty of others on the table.
I tell you, I know where he's hidden it.
Is it in this room?
Yes.
But where? In the pool table? In the radio? In some secret panel?
No.
You'd better speak up, Dolly.
Has it ever struck you, any of you, that there is such a thing as an invisible piece of furniture?
An invisible piece of furniture? You mean we can't see it?
No, it's in plain sight. It's smack in front of your eyes. But nobody ever sees it. You can't see it now.
We may not understand you, Dolly, but by George, Derek Rolfe does. Look at his face.
Yes. I'm looking at it.
What's the matter with all of you?
Please don't become emotional, Mr. Rolfe. I detest emotion.
Miss, there's a reward of $10,000 for the recovery of that money. If you know where it is, tell us.
There's nothing easier. It's...
Before that young woman says something she may regret, please listen to me.
You've got him, Dolly. I don't know how or why, but you've got him.
Go on, Mr. Ralph.
Tell me, Winton, you and I used to play on the same baseball team, didn't we?
That's right. What about it?
What did I play on that team?
You were the pitcher. Why?
Was I good?
You had the best control and the best fast one I ever... Wait a minute. Why are you picking up that pool ball?
What are you going to do? Take it easy, Mr. Ralph.
You three are across the room from me. I have a number of rather dangerous objects on the table here, and I'll split that girl's skull if she says another word.
Don't be a blasted
fool. Think I can't do it? Well, does that convince you I haven't lost my pitching arm? You didn't even get a chance to raise that gun. No, you don't. Don't try to pick it up. Just let it lie there on the floor.
Get behind me, Dolly.
You stay where you are. We'll step off first base and...
Maybe you'd better listen to him, Miss Dale. Well, what are you going to do, Ralph? You can't keep us here forever.
I don't propose to keep you there forever. I'm not so enamored of your company.
Then what's the game?
Well, I'll make a bargain with you.
Well?
My car's outside, with a little more gas than the state allows. Give me one clear hour to get away. Well, what do you say?
I'm a cop, Mr. Ralph. I can't make any bargains with you.
No?
No, and I'm coming over there after you.
And you'll compel me to start throwing. Down, Dolly, down under the table.
You missed that one, Mr. Ralph.
I'll not miss with this one.
It's a shame to bust that fuel rack, Mr. Ralph, but I'm still coming for you.
You've lost your control, old son. You're done for. I tried this.
That was the wildest pitch yet.
Dolly, look. Don't get up, but look.
What is it?
The radiator. The steam radiator. He's knocked the whole thing sideways. Did you ever see that happen to a radiator before?
Of course not, because it's a dummy radiator.
Dummy radiator?
Yeah, I got you, Ralph. I'm not too old to handle a bird like you.
You haven't even got a search warrant.
I'll take a chance. Well, what was that about? A dummy radiator?
Yes. Look here. It's got a little oil burner inside to make it give out heat.
Yeah?
And there are hinges at the back to form a lot of compartments where you can hide as much money as you like.
I saw the hinges when he told me to go over to the radiator, but I didn't guess what they meant. It's really a safe that never attracts attention because nobody ever notices it.
And the stuff's here, all right.
There, Mr. Hollister. That's what I saw in the suitcase.
I told you there was a $10,000 reward for that, miss.
Oh, did you hear that? Turn on the radio, Jerry. Go on, turn it on. Welcome in the new year. Didn't you tell me, all of you, that the money was hot?
Nothing Up My Sleeve, starring Alyssa Lundy and George Coulouris. Tonight's story of suspense. Columbia presents these tales of mystery, intrigue, and dangerous adventure for your relaxation and enjoyment. Next Tuesday, there'll be another in this series. Same hour, 9:30 Eastern Wartime. William Spear, the producer, John Deeds, the director, Bernard Herrmann, the composer, conductor, and John Dixon Carr, the author, are collaborators on Suspense.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Our next broadcast brings together everything that was good about old-time radio rolled into one. The title itself almost sums up the very essence of what radio drama is all about. Each of the episodes was a microdrama, carefully planned to capture the listener's attention. Over 200 episodes were made, and almost all of them are as good today as they were over half a century ago. For the first few years the series was on air, the announcement at the start of the show varied almost every week, but by the 1950s, it had settled down to be the now famous "Tired of the everyday grind? Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure? Want to get away from it all? We offer you Escape on HOJO Radio."
You are isolated on a remote plantation in the crawling Amazon jungle, and an immense army of ravenous ants is closing in on you, swarming in to eat you alive. A deadly black army from which there is no escape. We offer you Escape, designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure. Tonight, we escape to the Amazon jungle and to a creeping, crawling terror, as Carl Stevenson told it in his famous story, Lion Engine versus the Ants.
I first met Leiningen while performing my duties as district commissioner. As my boat neared his plantation landing, I saw him upon the riverbank, regarding me with mild interest. A great hulk of a man with bristling gray hair, bulky nose, and pale eyes. His entire appearance somehow suggested an aging and shabby eagle. He escorted me to the terrace and had a drink brought. I came quickly to the point of my visit and issued my warning. Leiningen puffed placidly at a huge cigar as he listened, and then said,
Exactly what are you trying to tell me?
I'm trying to tell you that unless they alter their course, and there's no reason why they should, they'll reach your plantation in 2 days at the latest.
Well, Commissioner, it was decent of you peddling all this way just to give me the tip. But you're pulling my leg, of course, when you say I've got to get out.
Now, look, I assure you, I'm not...
Commissioner, even a herd of crocodiles couldn't drive me from this plantation of mine.
Oh, you don't understand. These aren't creatures you can fight. They're an elemental force, a gigantic catastrophe. 10 miles long, 2 miles wide. Ants, nothing but ants. And each one as big as your thumb, and each of them a fiend from hell. Unless you clear out at once, there'll be nothing left of you but a skeleton. Picked as clean as your own plantation will be.
I'm not going to run for it, Commissioner, just because trouble's on the way.
But it isn't trouble, it's...
And don't think I'm the kind of fathead who tries to beat off lightning with my fists either. I've got a better weapon, Commissioner. Intelligence. With me, the brain isn't just a second appendix. I know what it's there for.
Can't I make you understand the hideous...
I think it is you who do not understand. In the 3 years I've been here, I've met and defeated more than one catastrophe. Floods and droughts, a plague. Events which caused many of my neighbors to flee for their lives. No, Commissioner, all my life I've lived by one motto. The human brain needs only to become fully aware of its power to conquer even the elements.
Silence in your obstinacy is endangering not only your own life, but the lives of your 400 workers and their families. You don't know these ants. I tell you don't know these ants. But Leiningen merely sat there, puffing at his cigar and regarding me with a sardonic grin. And I knew it was hopeless. As I boarded my launch and cast off, I turned to look once more at this man who calmly intended to defy one of the world's greatest scourges. I saw the sudden resentment toward him, and yet, with it was something else. I'd never met a man like that. I couldn't help wondering what combination of elements made up such a creature.
I stood on the bank of the river watching the commissioner's launch until it rounded a bend and was lost to sight. There was a strange look in the commissioner's eyes as he stood on deck staring back at me. Clearly, he thought me, at the very least, unreasonable. Well, he wouldn't have been the first to think so. But I, Leiningen, knew my own powers. I was sure of myself. I knew that intelligence directed right always makes man the master of his fate. That night I called my Indian workers together in front of the plantation house. I saw their faces go ashen with terror as I told them the ants were coming. Watched them as they milled around, muttering. I said nothing more to them. Finally, one of the men stepped forward. Blas, the foreman.
Patron, we have worked hard here for these 3 years, all of us. We have built the finest plantation in this district. We all share in it. It has been a home for all of us and our families. Now the ants come.
So?
Those ditches we dug last year, the pipe we put in the ground, that was for the ants?
That was for the ants.
If we moved our families across the river, the ants could not reach them.
That's right. And you?
The ants are mighty. We know what they can do. All of us think that you are mighty. Hey, here, give us a Patron, we will stay and fight against the ants with you.
I knew the men would give me that answer. I'd counted on it. Suddenly I thought of the commissioner and wondered what he'd say at such unquestioning confidence. Would he still think I was, unreasonable?
All that night, I could not get Leiningen out of my mind. One man who calmly evaluated his chances against a deadly menace coolly decided that he could win and was willing to stake his life on it, to risk a horrible death for it. It was terrifying, and yet it was fascinating. When dawn came, I sent for my assistant. Together we went to the huge map of the district which hung from a wall of my office.
The last reported position of the ants came in last night. They were, here, about 70 miles above this fork in the river.
Traveling southeast?
Yes, sir.
When would you say the ants will reach there?
Why, no, sir. I imagine about tomorrow noon.
Tomorrow noon. Still time.
Still time? What do you mean?
Oh, nothing. Never mind. What did I mean? Still time for what? A line engine to flee, or still time for me to... Even as I rejected the thought with horror, I knew that the fascination of that man was more than I could resist. That line engine's flight was drawing my mind, drawing me back toward that plantation and death. I knew past all doubt that I was going back to line engine's plantation. I had to. It was 10 o'clock in the morning when I rounded the bend and saw line engine's plantation before me. I put in at the dock and tied the launch, and then I saw him standing on the bank above me. Arms folded, stubby cigar in his mouth, and that same sardonic grin on his face. I made my way up to him.
Back for another warning, Commissioner?
No?
Oh, back to stay a while?
Yes. You don't seem very surprised.
I'm not.
You expected me?
I knew you'd be back. Come along, we'll get some horses. You'll want to ride around the plantation and take a look at the defenses I've rigged up.
Yes. I want to see the defenses.
And the ants. We'll be getting a glimpse of them before long, I should think.
Yes, and the ants.
Come along.
The defenses line engineers had devised were quite impressive. Surrounding three sides of the plantation like a huge horseshoe with a ditch 12 feet wide. Ends of this horseshoe-shaped ditch ran into the river, which formed the fourth side of the plantation. And at the upriver entrance of the ditch, line engineer had constructed a dam by which river water could be diverted into the ditch. A large hand wheel controlled the floodgate of the dam, and apparently line engineer had ordered it opened immediately after my arrival. For as we now approached the ditch and rode along it, I could see that it was nearly full.
Well, how do you like my first line of defense, Commissioner?
Well, it's reassuring, like a moat around a castle.
Unless the ants know how to build rafts, they won't reach the plantation. But this is only the outermost. There's a better one than this. Come along. We'll go up to the high ground where the buildings are. We can get a view from there.
Line engine.
Huh?
I didn't see any women or children around the plantation, or any animals.
That's right. Move them across the river.
Oh. And you think there is danger?
Oh, not because of danger, Commissioner. A matter of efficiency.
Efficiency?
Cuts down the efficiency of the men if they're worried about their families. Critical situations only become crises when oxen or women get excited.
I might have known.
Huh?
Nothing.
Here we are. See the ditch?
Much smaller than the other.
You've noticed how all the buildings are on this piece of high ground. This inner ditch surrounds them, and it's lined with concrete.
But even filled with water, this is no barrier. It's not big enough. Why, if the ants get this far,
they'll get no farther. This ditch wasn't built for water, Commissioner. See the pipes leading into it? See those storage tanks on the hill? Petrol. We can throw up a wall of flame. Care to bet they won't like that?
Look! Over the edge of the jungle, all those animals.
Running like the wind. Everything from jaguars to monkeys.
Good.
Remember, they don't have any ditches.
And there's no escape.
They'll be all right as long as they don't get caught between the river and the ants. They can outrun the crawlers. But if they get trapped, it's either the ants or the crocodile. Look over there on the horizon. There's your ants. Look at them.
It was a sight I'll never forget. Over the range of hills, as far as I could see, crept a darkening hem, ever longer and broader, until the shadows spread across the entire slope and then downward, uncannily swift. All the green herbage on the entire slope was being mown as by a giant sickle, leaving only the vast moving shadow extending, deepening, and always moving nearer.
Oh, they're a hideous lot.
Lineman, we can't last against that. Look at them. They could fill your ditches with their corpses and still have enough to destroy every one of us. We've got to run.
Well, No. They haven't reached us yet, and they never will.
The hostile army was approaching in perfect formation. No human battalion, however well drilled, could ever hope to rival the precision of that advance. Along a front that moved forward as uniformly as a straight line, the ants drew nearer and nearer to the water ditch. As they approached, two outlying wings of the army detached themselves from the main body and started marching along the sides of the ditch, no doubt expecting at some point to find a crossing. And during this hour-long flanking movement, the main army remained still, across the scant 12 feet of ditch, I stared at them. And they stared back at me. A solid mass, every one as big as my thumb, with a reddish black body and long legs. Suddenly, a sound so unearthly as to freeze our blood jerked our heads in the direction of the jungle on the far side of the ditch. Coming toward the ditch at a stumbling gallop was a singular being, a writhing, animal-like, blackened statue, with a shapeless head and 4 quivering feet. It was a stag, covered over and over with ants. Leinenton threw up his rifle, and the stag fell lifeless to the ground. Its agonies at an end. Horrified as I was, my curiosity impelled me to glance at my watch. I had to know how long the ants would take. After 6 minutes, only the white, polished bones of the stag remained. Now I could see a change in Leinenton. Gone was the sporting zest of the novel contest. In its place was a cold, violent purpose to send these vermin back to the hell where they belonged. If he did not, we were both only too sure of the alternative. And now we even knew how long it would take the ants. An immense flood of ants, about 100 yards in width, commenced pouring in a glimmering black cataract down the far slope into the water-filled ditch. Thousands drowned instantly, but the rest began using the bodies as bridges. Leinenton immediately swung into action.
Aneo! Get to the dam. Open the floodgate more. Get the water in the ditch moving faster. Si, senor. Look at them drowned by the thousands.
Yes, but they keep coming. Even though the current carries many of them away, they're advancing.
We'll fix them. Last. Yes. How about those shovels and petrol sprinklers? You pass them out to the men. It has been done. Then get all hands here in a hurry. This looks like the spot for action. Commissioner.
Yes?
Beginning to see what I was talking about?
What do you mean?
About intelligence being more than a match for anything it tackles. Take the ants. They've got no intelligence. If they had, they'd have attacked along the whole length of the ditch instead of a narrow front like this. They'd have been across by now. Too bad for them. I'm not running their campaign.
You can joke about it like that with the ants halfway across the ditch?
All right, men. Busy with the shovels now. Dump some sand and slugs on them. See how they like that. And you with the petrol sprinklers, start something. They don't like it, Commissioner. They don't like it a bit. Look at them.
Yes, but look at the ones on the far side of the ditch. Whole clumps of them rolling into the water. The rest are using them for bridges.
What's keeping Saneo? He should be at the dam by now.
They're getting across. More of them.
I'll grab a shovel and Commissioner. Make them regret it. What's the matter? Into the petrol, lady. Out your paws in the petrol. Keep at it. Keep at it. You're lost if you stop now. The water's moving faster.
Now you've got the floodgates open.
Yeah. Look at the ants. They can't hold their own against the current now. They're being washed away. Look at them, Commissioner. The water's carrying them away. We beat them. We've won out.
It was true. Leinenton had won. The opening round. The floodgates were left open to force toll any night crossing. When dawn came, the dark blanket was still there, motionless across the ditch. Then we noticed the feverish activity on the other side of the plantation. Here, a grove of tamarind trees lined the far end of the ditch, and every tree swarmed with the crawling insects. But instead of eating the leaves, they were merely gnawing through the stems, so that a thick green shower fell steadily to the ground.
Last. Have all the petrol pumps brought? Get everyone over here except the lookouts on the other side, and pass out the shovel. Si, senor. Looks like I underestimated them when I said they didn't have intelligence.
What do you mean?
I said if they wanted to get across, they'd have to have rafts. And that's just what they've got. Those leaves are their rafts.
Even as he spoke, the leaves went tumbling down the far bank by the thousands. The current drew them away from the bank, and each leaf was crawling with ants.
Don't worry, Commissioner. I've still got a trick up my sleeve.
The water!
The ditch is drying up. Of course it's drying up. That's the plan. Those are the orders I sent to the dam.
Are you mad? As soon as it's empty, what's to prevent the ants from... Look, the water's way down. It's almost dry. They'll be able to come across the bottom.
They'll not make it if the man at the dam carries out his orders. He should have opened the gates again by now.
To flood the ants, right? Oh, what a chance to take. If anything should happen...
Here it comes. Here comes the water. Now we'll give the crawlers in the ditch a good run out into the river. There. Look at them go.
Livingston's tactics were successful. At first, the violent flow of water at the original depth raced through the ditch, overwhelming leaves and ants and sweeping along. 3 times the ditch was empty. 3 times the ants raced across its bottom. And 3 times the rushing water, arriving just in time, carried them away. But the 4th time, the level dropped nearly to the bottom of the ditch. We waited in vain for the rushing waters, and then...
Senor, what's the matter? What's going on at the dam? The ants, senor. Just as the man at the dam lowered the water almost to the bottom, the ants attacked. Before he could open the floodgates, he was almost surrounded. He ran. The ants kept coming. They are across the ditch, senor.
Livingston stood, motionless, absorbing the news of his defeat without a word. Then, simply, he raised his pistol and fired 3 shots into the air. A prearranged signal for all men to retreat, instantly to the second line of defense. The concrete ditch was more than a mile from the point of invasion. Soon after we arrived there, the natives commenced straggling in, silently. Livingston waited until all of them had gathered. Then he spoke to them.
Well, lads, we won the first round and lost the second. But we'll smash the crawlers yet. Anyone who thinks otherwise can draw his pay and push off. There are rafts enough on the river and plenty of time still to reach them. You stay then? Good. Thank you, lads. And you, Commissioner?
I, can't persuade you to give up the fight, huh?
You cannot.
Then I stay too.
Huh, I knew you would.
Senor, a few of the ants have reached the ditch.
They're trying to get across?
No.
I didn't think they would. There's plenty of food over there for them. My fields, my orchards, my work of 3 years. Huh. Ought to last them until morning, anyway.
Yes, we were safe for the moment. But the next morning, the black swarm was solid around us. Their shock troops were hard at work. They were dropping shreds of bark, twigs, and leaves into the petrol-filled ditches, forming a floating bridge across the surface of the liquid. Livingston stood silently watching this operation, and I could see a grudging admiration in his face. Then, after several hours, the attack came. Down the ditch they poured, millions of them, and across the bridge of twigs, rapidly approached the inner side. Livingston sat motionless, watching them. Livingston, for the love of God, don't sit there like a statue. He'll be on us in a moment.
Let them fill the ditch first. Now, all right. Everyone back from the ditch. Lads, hand me the torch. Now we'll see how our friends like a little heat around them.
The flames from the ditch shot into the air, devouring ants by the millions. It was some time before the petrol burned down to the bed of the ditch. And when it did, the devils came back for more. Again and again, Livingston fired the ditch to destroy them. But as they returned to the assault time after time, a slow, sickening horror crept into my mind. I looked quickly at Livingston and then at the petrol tanks. He read my gaze, nodded slowly.
That's right, Commissioner. We could hold them up forever if our supply of petrol was unlimited, but it isn't. We've only got enough to fill the ditch once more.
Livingston, isn't there a way? Any way at all?
Must be. Yes, there must be a way.
Yes.
Yes.
What is it?
We'll flood the whole plantation.
But how?
The river's higher than any point except this high ground we're on now. If the river was dammed all the way, it would overflow that stone breakwater and flood the whole plantation. We've got to close the floodgate at the dam. That'll do it.
You're mad. The dam is more than a mile away, a mile of ants. It's impossible.
You'll never get there, let alone get back. That's why you're wrong, Commissioner. I'll get there and I'll get back. Ha! Take care of things while I'm gone, eh?
I watched him as he calmly pulled on high leather boots, drew gauntlets over his hands, and stuffed the spaces between breeches and boots, gauntlets and arms, with petrol-soaked rags. He shielded his eyes with close-fitting mosquito goggles and plugged his nostrils and ears with cotton. Then the natives drenched his clothes with petrol. Bloss, who acted as doctor to the men, smeared a salve over him. And finally, Livingston was ready. And he stood surveying the course he must take to the dam. I sensed a sudden calm.
As I stood near the ditch ready for the run, I realized this was as it should be. I, Livingston, would meet the ants and defeat them, or be defeated by them. Livingston versus the ants. Yes, it was right that it should be like this. Now there was no more time for thought, only action. I took a deep breath and bounded across the ditch and among the ants. I ran in long, equal strides with one thought, one sensation in my being. I must get through. I dodged all trees and shrubs. Except for the split second my soul touched the ground, the ants would have no opportunity to light on me. I ran on. I was halfway to the dam before I felt ants under my clothes and a few on my face. I struck at them mechanically, scarcely conscious of their bite. The dam drew toward me slowly. The distance grew less. Less. Finally, only 100 yards away. 50. Then I was there. I gripped the ant-covered wheel. Hardly had I seized it when a horde of ants flowed over my hands and arms. I strained. Slowly the wheel turned and turned more. Floodgate was swinging slowly shut. And then it was shut. And the water was rising behind the breakwater, closer to the top. Closer. Then it was spilling over. The flooding of the plantation had begun. I let go of the wheel. Started back through the ants. The first time I realized I was coated from head to foot with the fumes. Tongues of fire stabbed me as they bit into my flesh. I almost lost my head with the pain as I ran, knocking ants from my body, brushing them from my bloody face, and then one bit just below the brim of my goggles. And it tear it away. The agony of the bite and its venom drilled into the eye nerves. My gone out was circles of fire into a milky mist. I was almost blinded, but I knew that if I tripped and fell, I ran on, my heart pounding as if it would burst, blood roaring in my ears, a giant fist battering my lungs. Then I could see dimly that ball of flame at the ditch. But it was too far away. I couldn't last half that distance. I stumbled. I fell. I felt myself being swarmed over, devoured. A great weight. And suddenly the vision of the half-devoured stag in my brain. Minutes, then nothing but bones. I couldn't let that happen to me. I couldn't die like that. To my feet. My feet. I dragged myself forward. Towards the flame. The ditch. Ring of flame. Closer now. Only a little farther. 10 steps. 8. 5.
Seemed we had waited for hours. When all at once, through the blazing ring around us, an apparition hurtled and fell full length on the ground. It was Leinenton, alive with ants, unconscious with glazing eyes and lacerated face. We rushed to him, stripped off his clothes, and tore at the ants that covered him. His body seemed almost one open wound. In one place, I could see a white bone. Later, as the curtain of flame lowered, I looked out where that blanket of ants had been and saw only a vast expanse of water covering the entire plantation, working its way to within a few feet of the concrete ditch. The ants were gone, drowned, and Leinenton had won. He lay on his bed, body swathed from head to foot with bandages, but alive and still in command.
Everything in order?
Everything's in order.
I told you I'd come back. Even I am a bit streamlined.
He grinned, shut his eyes. He slept.
Escape was directed this week by Richard Sandville, and tonight brought to you Leinenton versus the Ants by Carl Stevenson, adapted for radio by Robert Rice, with Tudor Owen as Leinenton and Gerald Moore as the Commissioner. Music conducted by Wilbur Hatch. Next week, you are standing at the doorway of the cabin on Cashier Creek. From the ridge, the bloodhounds have caught your scent. And between you and a fortune, between you and escape, yawn the white jaws of a deadly snake, a cottonmouth moccasin. Next week, we escape with Irvin S. Cobb's ironic story, Snake Doctor. Be with us next week at the same time, and once again, we offer you Escape. Ethel Gilbert and Casey will be along in a few moments with tonight's crime photographer drama entitled Sellout. All year long, Casey, crime photographer, has been one of radio's top-rating shows. You're sure to enjoy the proceedings coming up over most of these same CBS stations. Chip Corning speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Thanks for listening to HOJO Radio. We have more classic radio coming your way next.
You are speeding through the Turkish night on the Taurus Express. You are alone and unarmed, and somewhere on the train is a common killer from whom you must escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William M. Robson, and carefully contrived to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape to Turkey, and the Taurus Express, which carries a shipment of death. As Harold Lamb told it in his exciting story, Three Good Witnesses.
I took the Taurus Express that night because I was going home. Back to the United States. Back to California. And my routine job at the oil company. 2 days before, I'd given my final report to our State Department man in Istanbul. A negative report.
And Mr. Ward, your considered opinion is that there is no oil in this area?
Not enough to be worth drilling for. Not at this late date. War'd be over before we could get out 10,000 barrels.
You're being optimistic, Mr. Ward. War isn't over yet. Who can say when it will be?
Well, that's true, but...
what does Orvar say?
He agrees with me completely. So does Wyndham, the British engineer. We're all agreed.
3 good witnesses, huh? Well, then that settles it.
What do you mean, 3 good witnesses?
Oh, that's no saying out here in the Middle East. Come from the Arabs, I think. In their old law, the testimony of 3 independent and trustworthy witnesses was enough to establish the guilt or innocence of an accused person.
But why 3?
I suppose 2 witnesses to a crime might tell the same lie. But if 3 fellows tell the same story, well, it must be true.
Maybe. I suppose the odds against 3 making up the same story would be high, but I don't know whether I'd like to trust my neck to that kind of justice.
Yes, it is a little different from the justice back home in Chattahoochee County. I imagine you'll be wanting to get back to the States as soon as possible.
Indeed, I do.
Well, I can put you on the Taurus Express Wednesday. You'll be in Cairo by Saturday. Get an ATC plane that'll have you in Washington 3 days later.
Istanbul to Washington in less than a week. It's a small world, isn't it? So I was booked on the Taurus Express, leaving Istanbul on Wednesday night. I got to the station late, and as I walked down the long platform toward the first-class carriages, I sensed a tenseness in the crowd. First, I couldn't explain it. Then I noticed that the platform was alive with police. They stood at the door of every car, motionless, solemn-faced, carefully scrutinizing everyone who got aboard. And it seemed that everyone on that bustling platform was aware of them. I found my car near the front of the train. A policeman stood at the open door. I paused to verify the car number, and suddenly I heard a voice at my elbow.
I thought I had missed you.
A pair of arms twined around my neck. A pair of lips were kissing me. I stood away to try to see her face, but she clung to me. Tried to say something, but she kept talking so fast I couldn't get a word in.
How could you do this to me? To run off without even saying goodbye? I must be with you right up to the last minute. My darling.
Last I could see her. She was beautiful. Very young and very beautiful. Turkish or Greek, I couldn't tell which, but lovely.
Why? You must let me go on the train with you. See you safely to your compartment. I cannot bear it.
Madame, I'm afraid you're making a mistake.
Please, you must help me. I will explain.
But
Come, you will leave the train. I will see you safely on board. Come, hurry, so we may say our last goodbye in privacy.
This last was thrown over her shoulder to the policeman standing there. She pulled me up the steps into the car. He stared at us, but he said nothing. In the moment, we were standing in the deserted corridor.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank
Now,
you.
look here, young lady. What is all this?
It is the fault of those police. standing up there. I could not get into the car alone.
But why not?
This is a first-class car. Only rich foreigners ride in first-class compartment. I could see by your clothes you were American. I knew you would help me.
But why did you want to get into this car, especially?
Because I...
Suddenly she stopped. Her eyes were riveted on something behind my back. I turned to see a swarthy young man staring at us from the other end of the car. He was dressed in the uniform of a train conductor. Slid open the compartment door. There was an almost imperceptible jerk of his head, and then the girl slipped past me and into the open room. The conductor slid the door shut after her.
Your number, sir?
Huh? Oh, yes, 12.
Yes, the next one. Here. If there is anything I can do for you, I shall be pleased. If you care to leave your ticket and passport with me, I shall be able to attend to Syrian customs without disturbing you later.
As he talked, his eyes were not on me. He was watching the slow progress of a policeman through the car. The officer was walking by, glancing into each compartment. When he came opposite us, he spoke to the conductor.
Polikala.
Conductor was standing squarely in front of the door of the girl's compartment, hiding her from view. The policeman walked on. In a moment, he had disappeared.
Thank you, sir. I shall not disturb you.
I went into my compartment. My bags were already there. The train was about to leave. Everything was in order. But I couldn't help wondering about the incident I just witnessed. About the girl I'd involuntarily hemped and the conductor. Wondered about all those police out there. Obviously, something was going on. Then I remembered. This was Istanbul, the gateway to the Middle East. It was supposed to be alive with acts of spies. Could that girl be... Then I laughed. Just my overage, stay-at-home mind imagining things. Then suddenly I heard a voice in the corridor outside.
What's the big idea?
The voice was unmistakably American and music to my ears. I jumped to my feet and stepped into the corridor. There outside the next compartment was a young man, in civilian clothes, carrying a small bag and a briefcase. The swarthy conductor was approaching him with a worried look.
This, huh? There's a dame in my compartment. Beg pardon, sir. There must be a mistake. This is compartment number 10. Naturally. You think I can't read? Number 10, that's mine. But number 10 is not sold. It is not marked on my list. The heck it is, and I've got the ticket right here. What's with the dame? Please, not so loud. I don't get this.
I beg your pardon. Can I be of any help?
Oh, you're an American, too.
Yep. Humphrey Ward, Los Angeles.
Tom Hatfield.
Glad to know you.
Look, what's with the dame? Do you know?
No, I'm afraid
Gentlemen, step into the compartment, please. But the girl... Please. In. Yes? Okay.
Well, Please. Oh, all right.
He evidently in.
Passaria. Apisema, not to come. Hey, wait a minute. Talk English. What's all this about, anyway? It is... I am embarrassed, sir. You're embarrassed. I buy a ticket and find a dame in my compartment. Of course, on closer inspection, maybe I'm not so mad after all. She looks like a good deal.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, you do speak English, huh? Sir, the policeman will come by, maybe look in. I must ask of you a favor. Yeah? If she could stay here just until the train has started, she will not bother you after that. Why can't she stay in her own compartment? Please, sir, I have no place else to put her. All the other places are taken. Oh, she's a deadhead, huh? Deadhead? No ticket. Stowaway. It is something like that. Oh, what's the setup? She your girlfriend? No, it is not like that. It is... You see, we are both Macedonian. She is escaping from the Nazis. She wants to go to Cairo to join the nurse corps. Oh? She has been for 2 years in Greece, under the Nazis. Mm-hmm. She is a real patriot. If you will help her... Well, maybe if you introduce us and let her speak for herself. She is called Mara Dallas. Well, let's make it Mary for short. Mary the Deadhead. Hi, Mary.
Hi. You're okay.
Get her. She talks American.
I spent 2 years at American school at Thessaloniki. I work with Red Cross in Greece during the fighting.
That's so?
I like Americans. I want to go to the United States.
Who doesn't?
I want to learn to be a real nurse. You will help me. Americans are always kind.
Mm-hmm.
This gentleman here, he helped me get on the train.
Naturally.
Now you will help me. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Now, I must go before the policeman gets suspicious. Okay, this turned out to be a pleasure.
Looks like you don't need me. I'm in the next compartment. Maybe we'll get together later.
Sure. I'd offer you a seat, but we're sort of crowded already. Mary and me.
I went back to my seat laughing mostly at the silly idea I'd had that maybe Mary the Deadhead and her conductor friend were spies of some sort. Obviously, they were harmless. As harmless as I was. And that was completely harmless, confound it. I looked out the window as the train slid out of the station, leaving Turkey, leaving the war, going home. Back to complacent safety. And we're out here fighting and dying. They'd get no help from me. Me. Overage and useless. I felt pretty sorry for myself. It wasn't until the next day that I began to get acquainted with my fellow passengers. Mary, the deadhead, was riding on the conductor's jump seat at the end of the car. The Rubians, an Armenian couple, were in 14, the compartment next to mine. Young Tom Hatfield was on the other side of me. And two Greek refugees, Mr. Chiniara and Mr. Drikar, were next to him in 8. Hatfield kept pretty much out of sight all day, and it was Mr. Chiniara who shared a table with me at dinner that night. I didn't much care for him, but he was somebody to talk to.
You Americans, you do not realize how lucky you are.
No, I suppose not.
You do not know what it is to be safe. Just look around you. Almost all the passengers on this express are refugees. All of them would pay much to be going to the United States as you are.
Yeah, I suppose so.
But yes. Where else is there any security for us? But you, sir, and your young friend are already secure. Wherever you go, you are always safe. But it is not so for us.
Yeah, I suppose we do take a lot for granted, and... Oh, here's Mr. Hatfield now. Hatfield, won't you join us?
Thanks, no. I'll just sit
Oh,
over
no,
there.
I insist. I was just leaving. You must join your friend.
Oh, really? There's no need?
I insist, please.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Signora. It's been a pleasure.
And for me, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Take it easy.
Well, I haven't seen much of you today. Been resting, eh?
Something like that. You ordered?
Yes, I'll call waiter.
Never mind. He'll be back. Who's your slick-haired friend?
Oh, Mr. Chiniara? He's a Greek refugee, just escaped from the Nazis.
Everybody out here just escaped from the Nazis.
He was saying how lucky we are to be Americans. Guess I don't see many of us in Turkey these days.
I guess not.
Haven't seen many of us myself. Funny, I didn't run into you in Istanbul.
I wasn't there, just passing through.
Oh. Yeah, I thought I'd have met you at the American Mission or somewhere.
No.
Well, I'm out here at the State Department. Oil. But I didn't have much luck. I'm going home now.
Too bad.
Plenty of things for us Americans to do out here, though. Like, oil and other things, you know. Of course, they give the unimportant stuff to has-beens like me. Leave the good stuff for young fellows like you.
Okay, Mr. Ward.
Huh? What?
Okay. I'm Tom Hatfield, Frankfort, Kentucky. White, Protestant, 26, unmarried. No, I'm not a draft dodger, and no, I'm not AWOL. And yes, I'm here on business, which is none of yours. I'm a captain in the Air Force. 2 years overseas. You might say officially I'm on a holiday. The fact is, I'm taking this train to Adana, where I get off at 5 tomorrow morning, cross the border, and catch a plane waiting to take me to Cairo. Anything else you want to know?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Sit down. I'm sorry. I guess I'm getting on my own nerves. Forget it, will you?
Oh, it's nothing. You needn't think that...
Riding on trains is kind of bad for a flyer. It makes me jumpy.
I understand. You must have already been through a lot. I do understand. I was in France in 1918. I know what it's like.
Maybe you know better than I do.
Oh, I wouldn't say that, but I envy you. I'd give anything to be in it.
You're lucky you're not.
Oh, I know. No fun being old and useless like me either. I envy you. I can tell you're doing something important.
You can? How?
By the way, you're so careful with that briefcase. Carry it around with you all the time. You got it on your lap now. Probably got something important in it. The statues or something.
So you noticed that, did you? Well, I hope nobody else on this train is so observant, Mr. Ward.
Oh, you're pulling my leg. What difference would it make anyway?
You can never tell. On a train like this, out here, you never know.
Oh, you mean spies?
Well,
But why? I haven't seen anyone who looks suspicious.
Spies are never suspicious looking, Mr. Ward. They're anybody. Anybody who wants to make a quick buck and doesn't care how he does it. This train is alive with people like that.
Oh, yeah, but who?
Well, just take, for instance, Mary, the deadhead. She's young and pretty, yes. But she's broke. And her shifty-eyed boyfriend, the conductor.
Oh, but they're Greeks. She's a refugee.
So she says. But didn't it seem strange to you that he put her in my compartment by mistake? My name wasn't on the list, so he said. Were you satisfied with her story?
Well, for a moment I was suspicious, but...
You can't take too much for granted. Now, for instance, the story I just told you. I might be a spy, mightn't I? That thing might be hogwash.
Well, no. You're American. I know that. But who else would say hogwash?
No matter. I could be an American traitor. There are such things.
Oh, but...
Or you might be the spy. Yeah, they even look like you. Meek and mild. Casper Milquetoast. And their cover stories are pips. Like telling you they're out there looking for oil. They strike up a conversation, ask questions, and notice briefcases.
Oh, but look here. Surely you don't think...
No, I don't think anything. I only say, you never can tell, Mr. Ward.
Of course he was kidding me, pulling my leg, but I didn't really mind. I liked him, and he had a right to be cocky and flip. He was doing something for war effort. Even though I knew he was kidding me, I went to bed thinking about spies and fell asleep dreaming of them. Then very suddenly, I woke with a terrible sense of urgency. There was something that I must do. I looked at my watch. It was 10 minutes to 5. The train was dark. Everything was quiet. And yet, I felt I had to get up. I started to put on my clothes. It didn't make sense, but then I remembered. It was John Hatfield, not me, who had to get up at 5, leave the trains at 1, to cross the border into Syria and take his plane. Those dispatches must be important. If he had to change to a fast plane as soon as he got out of neutral Turkey. When I started into the dimly lit corridor, it was deserted. I knocked on Hatfield's door. No answer. I tried the handle. The door slid open into darkness. Something was wrong. I switched on the light and went in. Tom Hatfield lay there in the bunk asleep. Hey, Hatfield! Rise and shine. They're coming into Adana. You've got to get off. I shook him. He didn't move. Then I saw blood on his pillow and on his head. I looked around quickly. The briefcase was gone. Kevorkian! Kevorkian!
Is something wrong, sir?
Did either of you see anybody go into number 10?
No. Nobody. Who should go?
Look, do you have keys to the doors?
But no. There are no keys. Locked from the inside is sliding bolt and chain. Nobody can get in once they are locked.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I knew Tom Hatfield would have locked that door. Somebody must have gotten in some other way and left that corridor door open as a false clue. But how? Then I noticed the door was connected to number 8. I tried it. It was locked. This didn't make sense. But through my mind was racing one thought. American dispatches have been stolen. Tom Hatfield is out. It's up to me. I searched the room. I found an automatic up the mattress, but no briefcase. I heard train start up again. We were leaving Adana. I looked again at the connecting door. Then I got it. The bolt was fastened on the other side of that door, but on this side it was not. That meant that someone could have come in through number 8. I knocked on the door. I heard the movement, and then the bolt slid back and the door swung open. I was face to face with Mr. Chiniata, and he was staring at the gun in my hand.
What is that for?
The briefcase. The bag of my friend. Is it here?
Briefcase? Bag? Oh, we have here only our valise.
This door has been opened. Something is missing.
Oh, if you have lost something, I pray you to look. I know nothing of it. Come in, please, and look.
All right, I will. I'm not accusing anyone, but I just want to be sure that... Next thing I felt was a stinging coldness on my face, rushing of wind. I realized that I was hanging half out of the window of the car. It was shoving me out of the train. Savagely, I kicked. I thought something did. And I pushed myself back and slid down onto the floor. I thought something hard under me. The gun. In the dim compartment, I saw them coming at me. Chiniata and Drikar. I raised the gun.
What is it? What has happened?
Oh, look! On the floor!
Shut the door quickly.
Are they...
Wait, let me look. Yes. Both of them. Finish.
They took the briefcase. I'm sure they did.
Hey, who's shooting up the place?
Hatfield.
Holy cow, will you look at that? What's happened?
Well, the briefcase. It's here someplace. I'm sure it is.
Hey, wait a minute, fella. You're all banged up here. Looks like we both got some. Here, sit down. You'll need a drink. Mary, you'll find a pint in my bag. Bring it in here, will you?
But they got the papers. We ought to look.
I did.
Yeah, the briefcase isn't here. I don't see it.
Well, there wasn't anything in that briefcase except some old Istanbul newspapers. I probably threw it out the window. Back at Hyder Pasha, a Britisher I know warned me to be careful on this trip. I put my classified material someplace else.
Oh, but then that means I killed 2 men without any cause. Without a shred of evidence to back up my story.
How we waste time. Quick, The Syrian border police got on the train at Adana. They might be here any minute. Now, who is dead here?
Mary, the deadhead, took me into Hatfield's room and carefully administered first aid to my cuts and bruises. But Kevorkian and Hatfield were busy in number 8. What are they doing?
Never mind. Pay no attention.
But they're throwing the bodies out of the window.
Think not of it, please. Kevorkian is a Macedonian. When he fought the Germans at Thessalonica, he threw bodies over the cliff. He knows what he is doing.
Oh, but
you are a brave man, too. Even if you are not Macedonian. You would be judgment tried for 2-3 years in spite of your age and your innocence. It is better to have no bodies.
What's that?
Be quiet now. The border police.
Well, we got the room cleaned up just in time.
Has the passport. I forgot.
No, they are not here.
I can tell you about Kenyatta and Richard. This man here, Mr. Ward, he is American general in disguise. Secret service. He put Kenyatta and Richard off at Adana with pistols. They were spies.
Good heavens. You'll never believe that.
Never mind. This man is a Syrian. He does not care what happens in Turkey. But do you have any Syrian money?
Oh, yes. Here. In my wallet.
Good. Give it to me. Thank you. Now, come with me, Sergeant.
Do not worry now, Mr. Ward. In a moment, Kevorkian will have those passports. We will throw them out the window, and there will be no trace.
Kind of think, Mary. I thought you might be drawing down Axis paycheck.
It is no matter. Now we are out of Turkey. And before long, I can go to United States.
Maybe that might not be so easy. You've got no money, no passport, no transportation through the combat zones.
Never mind. I shall do it. I walked to here from Macedonia. I can walk all the way. Like St. Paul in the Bible walked to Rome.
Well, I wish you luck, but you'll have a time getting by British control at Aleppo. You can't smuggle a pack of cigarettes past them.
Oh, but what about me? What about a murderer?
I don't know. We'll see.
It was morning when the train pulled into Aleppo, the station where British control came on. Trip had been pretty awful. With Tom trying to act as if nothing had happened, and with me staring into that empty room, imagining Chinyara and Rika sitting there staring back at me. Maybe they had been spies, maybe not. Now they were dead, and I was in trouble. We knew that the minute the train stopped. A soldier stood outside our windows and said,
Look here. Everyone reminds of his place in this car.
We waited silently for many minutes. Then a British major in khaki shorts stepped in. Behind him I saw Kevorkian and Mary the Deadhead standing in the doorway.
Good morning, I'm Radcliffe. I'm looking for 2 missing passengers identified as Greeks. Chiniara and Rika, the name. Oh, come now, they seem to have been in the next compartment. And here. What became of them?
Were there 2?
You met him.
Yes, sir?
You weren't in number 8, were you? You don't seem to have any other place. Nor simply an entrance visa.
Please. I sat down in the corridor.
Quite. Conductor, don't you remember 2 passengers booked through to Aleppo? One was a stout man, bookseller, who came from Greece 10 days ago. The other...
those. They descended from the car at Adana. One was fat with slick hair, and the other...
Oh, yes. Really? I say, isn't that a bullet wall up there? And you, sir, Mr. Ward, isn't it? How did you hurt your forehead?
An accident. I bumped into...
That's quiet. I should tell you that the Armenian couple in number 14 heard shots just after passing Adana. They were so frightened they locked themselves in until now.
It's no use. I shot them. Both of them. They hit me first.
Please realize that I'm not joking. My orders are to find those 2 pseudo-Greeks, wherever they may be.
Wait a minute. You said pseudo-Greeks?
You mean, Major, you want to find them?
And how, as you Americans say.
But why?
Because we're advised by Istanbul that certain Axis agents have been working out of the Balkans with identification as refugees. These 2, Chiniara and Dikar, were on this train. Our men on the train saw them throw something out at Tirana. They hardly threw themselves out.
No, we did that. Your man at Hayat Pasha tipped me off to expect trouble.
Oh, really?
So they were agents.
Certainly they were spies. I knew that. No Greek would be fat like Chiniara after only 1 week escape from the Germans.
And no Greek would have hair oil from Paris.
Well, that being the case, will somebody start telling the truth?
I will. This mild little gentleman, knowing nothing of the war and fighting, he killed you 2 men in a gunfight. How you say, like nobody business. And now, please, he is still suffering from shock. So will you please give him a plane direct to Cairo where he can rest? And this American courier, he is late with dispatches. He must have a place in the plane too. And since I cannot enter Syria without a passport, will you please put me also on the plane? Because in Cairo, I can get a job as a nurse with the El Agris from Macedonia who are there. And maybe God will then give me a way to go to America, like he passed St. Paul through the Taurus Gate. Is it a deal, Major? 3 places on first plane, and you have your men like the Royal Canadian Hoosies, only dead.
The plane could be arranged, of course, if...
All right, Mr. Ward. Tell him. Tell him.
With the eyes of that amazing girl on me, my courage came back. I told him my story, completely, in every detail. He listened carefully and took it all down on his pad, and afterwards he said...
That story, Mr. Ward, is not one bit of evidence to support it. By your own statement, the evidence is buried in the snow on the slopes of the Taurus Mountains.
I tell you, I helped check it out.
And I examined the 2 men. I am a trained nurse, and I said they were dead.
And for identification, I, a soldier of Macedonia, can swear that their passports were the men you say.
Very well. I'll ring the addrome. The evidence of 3 good witnesses is sufficient.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight brought you 3 Good Witnesses by Harold Lamb. Adapted for radio by John Dunkel, with Morgan Farley as Humphrey Ward, Jack Webb as Tom Hatfield, Jeanette Nolan as Mary the Deadhead, and Harry Bartell as Kevorkian. Music was conceived and conducted by Cy Fure. Beginning next Sunday night, Escape will be heard at a new hour, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Next Sunday night, we escape with another exciting adventure story, created for you by one of the world's great authors.
Good night, then, until 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Sunday night, when again we offer you Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Thank you for listening to HOJO Radio. We'll be back again very soon.